What's going on, diehards? Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. Happy Monday. Happy fight week. UFC 281. Your boy Clint here, rocking the baby blues. We're coming off a nice winning weekend, baby. Got the money chain. That's, part of last week's costume. I think we're going to make it a regular part of the winning week celebration over here on the Die Hard MMA podcast. Hope everybody is doing well. And you know what? We don't have as many viewers right off the bat as normal, and I think I know why. It's because of damn daylight savings time. I'm out here in the land of the desert and tumbleweeds, and we don't recognize your bullshit roll the clock backs thing. So because of that, the show this time of year always has to hop an hour, and that throws everybody off. So I'm just going to go ahead and start by apologizing because I know I'm going to get tweets, I'm going to get DMs, I'm going to get comments down in the YouTube channel, audio listeners as well. Like, everybody hates daylight savings time. I'm sorry, guys. I saw the tweet about it couple months ago. I thought we were done with it. I didn't think we were doing the clock thing anymore, but I guess we got like one more year to deal with this crap. So sorry, the show is going to be at 6:30 p.m. Eastern from this point going forward until we hit that one more roadblock of daylight savings time. Anyway, if you all could help me out, hit the like button as hard as you possibly can tonight so everyone can find the show. Welcome in, everybody. We have got Chris Harm, we've got Dream, we've got the Grateful Dude, we've got Sean Knuckle coming in strong with the $5 dono. First time in weeks. Good seeing you, Sean. Thank you very much for the donation here at Pub Sports Radio. And, of course, glad to hear you in person. Justin Vallejos. And we've got Efren Sosa saying, first time catching you live. Also, let us know if you have any updates on James Krause Discord. I was looking to rejoin. Efren, buddy, I got nothing for you. I have zero connection whatsoever with James Krause or his Discord, so you're going to have to find that information elsewhere. God bless you and good luck if you can find an opportunity. I personally wouldn't want to be stepping in that mess at this exact moment in time with the investigation and everything going on. It is what it is, folks. You know what, though? Like I mentioned before, coming off a good week, right? We locked up a win, UFC Vegas 64. And part of that is due in part to one of my favorite guests of all time, one of my favorite bettors of all time. You know him from championing Good Guys Rise, none other than Liam Picks Fights, joining us on the show tonight. What's up, Liam? How you doing, buddy?
What's going on, Clint? I'm happy to be here, man. Excited to talk about these fights. UFC 281, absolutely stacked card. When we start digging into a lot of these fight cards, it's like, all right, throw that one out. Not betting on that. Okay, get that one out of here. These ones, I'm like, man, should I bet on this guy? Oh my God, I remember that fight. I remember this classic. Like, I'm just, really excited about the fighters that are on the card, the quality. They don't always bless us with the best. I think this is a really good offering from the UFC. I think it keeps rising in terms of quality from top to bottom. UFC 280 was good. UFC 281 is going to be very good. UFC 282 off the freaking charts. So I'm excited, man. Combat sports on the rise.
It's interesting because it seems like they've really been just stockpiling these last couple of big pay-per-view events for the rest of this year. So we have suffered a little bit as fans for the last couple of weeks because they have had really just the absolute bare minimum to offer us as far as fight cards go. Now, don't get me wrong. They've been entertaining. They've been fun. We've been able to squeeze, a little bit of profit maybe out of them. But these pay-per-view cards, man, it is tough to beat. The names and the matchups. This one's going to be good.
I love it, man. I can't wait. And I think that even from the very first fight of the night, violence on the table, guys that are looking for those breakout moments those star-making appearances, where better than Madison Square Garden, coming at you live from the great state of New York tonight. And I'm telling you, there's something special about the building. Been there many times. Watched the Rangers lose in a bitter overtime thanks to my man Joe Anderson Brito getting me those Rangers playoffs tickets last year. So, hey, let's see how it goes this year. Started off a little rough for our New York Rangers, but MSG is still the place to be. And I think a lot of guys waiting to have that star-making performance. What better platform?
I love it, man. I love it. And I hear you. Don't talk to me about rough in hockey, my guy. I'm a Coyotes fan, so I'm over here celebrating when we pull off the upset as a plus 400 underdog once every, 8 games or so that we take our 6-3 L's. So yeah, no, I feel you. I'm right there with you on the pain. Speaking of which, fun stuff in hockey tonight. We're a little early, so usually the games are already kicking off. Folks, if you do get with me on any of the degenerate action, the only thing I did tonight, I did a fun little parlay. I'm going to throw in the Bruins, and I'm going to do the Oilers. You get like plus 140 on that. Just if you want to chase with me, you want a little degenerate sprinkle while the show is going, that's what I got for you. But I do want to let you guys know, as always, the show is brought to you by Pub Sports Radio. The lines we use here are brought to you by Superbook Sports. This week, they're bringing back the knockout bonus, and they're doing it bigger than ever, everybody. So if you do go on over to Superbook Sports, usually it's a $10 bonus. If you bet on the main event or the co-main event, you get a $10 bonus for every knockout on the card. So even if you don't bet on the other fights on the card, every single knockout gets you a $10 bonus. This week, they're doubling that bad boy. So instead, if you double your wager up, if you bet a minimum of $162 on either the main event or the co-main event, you get $20 for every KO on the card. Make sure you check that out. Not only that, you'll be entered in a contest to signed gloves. You get signed gloves from none other than Michael Chandler himself. So fun stuff going on the Superbook Sports contests this week, everybody. Let's go ahead, Liam, why don't we, and get this party started. We're going to, you know what? Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Just one thing real quick. Liam, I have to ask how you did last week.
Man, it was a good week, brother. I stuck to my guns, right? It's tough sometimes, especially doing what we do where we go out there and we air our opinions publicly. Thankfully for me, it was late in the week. So, people only got to get a couple jabs at me in the comments and things like that. But I think that, part of what I do is I just stand against the market, the common narrative. If I can, if it feels appropriate to me, if I feel like I can find a spot. And one of the number one things I look for is danger factor. I thought Amanda Lemos was a much more dangerous fighter. I thought she had the submission upside. We saw that in round 2, was nearly able to sink in that choke, was able to get the top position, get the wrestling going. And all that was what I said in my analysis, was just like, I'm seeing strength upside, wrestling upside, knockout upside in the first couple of rounds. Yeah, maybe I have to arb out of my position as I see it starting to go downhill at minus 125 in round 3. But I just felt like I was pretty confident Lemos was going to compete in the early rounds, if not win them. And I felt like she was more dangerous. So, yeah, cashed in big on the main event, hit a couple nice props, a couple big money spots. And then I added live Neil Magny plus 625, best bet that I've gotten off in a while, inside the distance there. Just thought it was a wide number. It's a welterweight fight at the end of the day. And sometimes you got to forget about, what your heart and what your, gut say, and just look at the numbers. And the numbers are like at welterweight plus 650 inside the distance is like very rare to see that number. And just because something hasn't happened since 2015 doesn't mean it's impossible. And so it just, it goes to show betting into variance. Sometimes you're going to come up empty. You're going to have losing weeks, but at the end of the year, you're looking to come out profitable. And that's what I'm trying to do. So yeah, man, it was a great week and looking to get back after it this week.
I like it, Liam. We couldn't have planned it any better, my guy. We scheduled my guy Liam to be on the podcast weeks ago. We've been planning this for some time, and he's riding hot. He's coming off a big underdog win. He's coming off nailing last week's card. You guys should be excited to hear our boy coming hot off the presses this week, because I think we're going to keep the streak rolling here. Liam, let's talk fights, man. First fight of the evening, Carlos Ulberg taking on Nicolae Negumereanu. And I love me some Nicolae Negumereanu, Liam. He seems like, the term I like is good soldier, except he's almost like a bad soldier. Like, you know exactly what he's going to do in every single fight. And that's why I use the term good soldier. But the honest truth is, Liam, he's just not very good. Like, he's not overly technical. He's a decent offensive wrestler, but he brings two things to the table. He brings holy crap durability to the table, and he brings good cardio. He's a guy that I think in certain situations you'll be able to use him to beat fighters that maybe he shouldn't defeat, because he can carry through the technique by the Homer Simpson approach, right? He can absorb some punishment, he can keep him coming, he will outlast his opponent. And even though he's not the best wrestler we've ever seen, he's not exactly your classic, or, Russian monster. He does have some grappling in his back pocket. We saw in his last fight, he was able to use some high fight IQ, mix in the takedown, wear his opponent out, and then put him out late as the fight goes. 13-1 coming in here. And he's taking on Carlos Ulberg, one of the CKB boys, right? City Kickboxing takeover here at UFC 281. He showed out last time, and a lot of people got caught with their pants down against Tefon Nchukwi, where they were really expecting him to be able to take Ulberg's best shot, and he put him out early, man. This is a big, explosive striker, and he starts fast. It really seems like he comes out guns blazing, rips to the body if you shell up trying to protect the noggin of yours. He's got that quick over-the-shoulder head kick that he likes to go to. He's a bit slow on the reload, though. He comes down here and leaves that head and that chin open. He's a bit hittable. Kennedy was able to take the best shot of Ulberg and then turn the tables on him as he started to wear down. This is a pick'em price tag right here on this one, Liam. And frankly, I'm almost thinking this might be the type of opponent that we can use Nicolae Negumereanu against. Ulberg is a minus 125 favorite, plus 105 on Nicolae. I can see him mixing in the takedowns. I can see him absorbing some power shots and dragging this fight deep, making it dirty, not letting it be technical the way Ulberg likes it and wants it to be. I'm leaning dogger pass early here, and I'm probably leaning violence early in this fight, man. What about you?
Yeah, I think that this is an interesting one because a lot of the City Kickboxing boys are on the card this week, and they're looking for a little bit of get back in a couple of these cases. But one of the guys that you're seeing that's not looking for get back is Ulberg, because he went out there and freaking destroyed my plus 100 bet on Tefon Nchukwi. And just looking back at the market history, this is a guy that people were betting on until the disappointments, right? He loses the fight against Kennedy Nzechukwu. The market moved heavily in his favor in that fight. He looked like the side until he died. It's just like brutal. He was going out there. He was beating him up. He got tired beating him up so much. He's a big guy with a lot of muscles, and he was throwing a ton of volume there. Kennedy can push a pretty crazy pace, although you could argue he kind of like destroyed Kennedy's chin a little bit because in subsequent fights, he wasn't able to take those shots necessarily the same. And then you see he goes out there and puts Tefon in the box early. So that was pretty brutal stuff. I think that he's clearly a dangerous striker. I bet a pretty insane prop, which was like a huge plus number on Tefon Nchukwi sub last time, because I was thinking, man, this guy's got some grappling upside. I don't know anything about Ulberg's ground game. Maybe that's where he could be exploited, because I feel like on the feet, he's going to be, pretty substantially difficult to deal with, even though he lost that one fight in the stand-up. When he was more composed against Fabio Chiron, it was completely non-competitive. Obviously, Fabio Chiron's not at a very high level, but then you see Tefon Nchukwi, who has had some good results in the UFC. He got completely starched there. And so that tells me that Ulberg is on a little bit of a different learning curve. They asked him who he wanted to fight, and he said Kennedy Nzechukwu, because he's like, man, this guy's a punching bag. Like, I'm going to hit him a million times. Everything went according to plan, except he never fell over. So I think that, he's now had some time in the UFC, some experience. MSG, it seems like they're kind of trying to set him up for a bigger opportunity. And you look at where books opened him, it was minus 200 on the Carlos Ulberg side. It's the people that have come in and closed this line substantially on Negumereanu, and it's obviously understandable why. He's 3-1 as an underdog so far in the UFC. So Negumereanu has been delivering for bettors. But the question is, can getting hit in the head a million times and just coming forward like a brute and taking people down and throwing crazy hands, can that work forever? And I do think that it's going to have its limitations. I think eventually it will get exposed. I do think Ulberg's probably going to knock him out here. I think he's a cleaner striker, and I think he's going to be too physical early to get taken down. So I just trust that Ulberg's the more dangerous athlete. But I do think Negumereanu's got upside if it gets later. He's probably the grittier guy. He's a little less handsome maybe. He's got less options. So if it gets gritty in that third round and somebody starts considering, man, I don't need to be here, maybe that's Ulberg, but I feel like he looks very well conditioned for this fight. His social media shows he's been working hard, maybe, visiting, with his friends, neighbors, trusted associates, doctors, anybody like that. You guys take your pick, but I think that Ulberg is probably the side here. And I would be passing on this fight or looking, like you mentioned, maybe violence, but I would actually favor Ulberg to get the job done here.
Okay. All right. A little disagreement early on the card. I don't hate it, Liam. Honestly, man, the market move is one of the things that sometimes I overlook this early in the week looking at, and I didn't check that on this one. I had my Friday show with Gianni last week, and he talked to me about the Ramona Pascal fight. And he said the same exact thing. He was like, you know what? If you got in at plus 200 early on, that's the side. But if you didn't get in at plus 200, the market very clearly is telling you, or the bookies are telling you, that this person is a 70% favorite. It's the bets that are changing that opinion. And at this stage, you buy low, you side with the bookies and go, you know what? They know something I don't. They're probably a little smarter than me. And anybody who bought low on Vidal last week at minus 140 came out looking handsome, smelling like roses. And the rest of us that took the dog shot holding the bag. So I'm not really all that excited to jump straight back into that again. Did not realize Ulberg opened up at a minus 200 price tag. So yeah, that'll get my attention and change my opinion ever so slightly here on this first one. So at this point, it's going to be a pass or pass. Let me do a little bit of research. You guys will find out if I bet this one if you follow me on Twitter a little later in the week. All right, everybody, do us a favor, smash the like button to support the show. Hang out with us here, talking fights. Next up, Julio Arce taking on Montel Jackson. And I got to tell you, Liam, I don't really know what to make of Montel Jackson. Like, he's a guy that I've thought of as a prospect for a very, very, very long time. Keep getting excited about him, but woof, his level of competition has been rough, to say the least, in the UFC so far. Not guys that are very long for the company or no longer with the company. And he's 30 years old. He's hitting that point where we got to go, all right, you're not a prospect anymore. It's put up or shut up. Now, he lost the decision to Brett Johns. I actually think very highly of Brett Johns, even though he's not with the UFC anymore. He looked for greener pastures, but you can't read too much into the wins over guys like Strader and Buys. And he had some scary moments in there, man, against guys like JP Buys. But he's got a ton of knockdowns, man. He's scored a knockdown in 4 of his last straight fights. 4 in the JP Buys fight itself, by the way. But a knockdown individually in at least his last 4 fights. This dude, they always talk about his hands, dude. Big hands. And the way he just kind of like meat hooks onto his grips, he can ride that body lock, grab you, drag you to the floor, and you're never breaking that kind of a grip. That kind of physicality, I always feel like, is a bit of a cheat code. If you're that big and you can make the weight and you've got that level of strength, it's something that's so difficult for your opponents to deal with. Julio Arce, 3-3 in his last 6, 18-5 overall. Extremely technical striker. He's 33 years old, so he's kind of, tailing off the end of his prime here. He's got that nice outside footwork, good side-to-side movement, kind of makes you chase him, sticking jab. He's got a powerful head kick on him, man. And he's got good head movement. He's elusive. He's hard to hit. He kind of gets you chasing him, and then he plants and he throws hard once you get in his line of sights here. I really love the way that this guy strikes, and he derailed the Santos hype train last fight out. A lot of people really left him for dead in that fight, and he showed that he still belongs. It's really kind of the upper echelon that he is losing to, and by narrow margins, Liam. I mean, Song Yadong put him out. Okay, fine. But he lost a split to Shimon Bryce. He lost a split to Hakeem Duadu. And the other guys that he beat, Andre Ewell, Julian Erosa, like, he starched those guys. It wasn't a soft victory. He showed where he's at. This is a big step up, in my opinion, from Montel Jackson. Julio Arce has a 94% takedown defense rating. And that's the kind of thing that always gets me a little bugging in these spots is Montel Jackson's a minus 210 favorite, and I know his best path to victory here is going to be on the ground. That 94% takedown defense for Julio Arce has me believing this fight might get a little bit more interesting than that. I'm a little confused, Liam. Talk some sense into me, man. Where are you going here on this one?
I actually think that another very tricky fight to call. This is one of the fights I spent the most time trying to watch tape for and understand, because personal biases just laid out on the table. Tiger Schulman's is like 45 minutes for me. So it's like, I really like those guys. I respect the gym. Very talented guys have come out of that gym. But I also think that one of the problems that I would say is like prevalent in the fighters that I see from the gym, in my opinion, and I am an idiot. So just remember that at the end of the day, I'm just a guy with an opinion. But I feel like they get hit too much. I feel like they like to engage in brawls and make it a war and bite down on the mouthpiece a little bit. And, he's good at it. Like Arce is very good at it. He lands a lot of huge shots. I mean, he landed massive punches on Hakeem Dawodu that would have hurt most normal people. And again, you look at guys that start to get hurt in subsequent fights. And I always say to myself, I'm like, how much of that has to do with the fact that they just took, a bunch of hard shots in the fight before? You always got to take that into account, cumulative damage. And, Montel Jackson's been taking very little damage in every fight. Most people aren't able to get off a lot of big shots on Montel Jackson. I think Ricky Simone landed a couple decent combinations, but it's really tough to land on the guy. He's absorbing less than 2 significant strikes per minute. And most guys that have beaten him have just relentlessly pursued takedowns. Because when you're on the feet with this guy, you're getting hurt. I mean, JP Buys got knocked down 4 times. The fact that the fight wasn't stopped was kind of remarkable. The referee just gave him every chance there. And I bet JP Buys that night is a huge underdog. I was cheering when he got the back take, all that stuff. But
I thought we had it, Liam. I thought we had it.
I did too. But then I rewatched the tape, man. And Montel lets a lot of guys get to a near choking position and then not only gets out, but he rolls back into the top position. He's extremely difficult to take down and control. He gets up instantly almost every time. It's really weird, freakish. He has huge hands. They talk about it on the broadcast, bigger than Francis Ngannou, but it's actually, it shows in the grappling. When he controls somebody's wrist, they don't get it back and he gets back up, from being in the mount, from being in the bottom side control. And that's just freaky behavior. So I think that Julio Arce, is a more well-schooled striker. And I think that he is probably a little bit more technical. I think Montel Jackson has a huge lack of experience in terms of overall competitive fights like this compared to Julio Arce. But it's also a question of the miles on the tracks for Julio Arce. Does that wear on him here coming back to 135 pounds for just the second time in a bunch of recent bouts? I did notice he's actually 0-2 at MSG, which I was surprised to see. He's a New York, New Jersey guy. He's 0-2 at MSG, but both those fights were at 145 pounds. And I think he was actually a favorite or pick him in both those fights. He's a guy who's been favored in almost all of his UFC fights, and Montel Jackson, same thing can be said. The one pause and hesitation I have with Montel, because I'm basically telling you guys, I think that despite really liking Julio Arce and respecting his game, I think he might just be a little bit physically outmatched here by guys a little bit longer, who hits really hard, who kind of reminds me of Hakeem Dawodu if he could wrestle better offensively and grapple better. And so those are the kind of problems that I think I'm seeing, where I don't see that relentless wrestling pressure and pursuit from Arce. He barely goes for his wrestling, even against credentialed kickboxers. They talk about it on commentary. They're shocked that he's not attempting more takedowns as he's getting into these wars with big guys who know how to kickbox. And he likes to fight. He's not here to, get into wrestling matches. He's here to fight people. And I think that could be a problem against Montel, who's recorded a knockdown in every UFC fight he's had since 2020. And the guy doesn't fight that often. I think that this is a competitive fight on paper. I think the minutes will be competitive, but I just think the physical advantages might be borne out in the end, and Montel Jackson might get the finish here. So it should be a great fight, though, while it lasts.
That's kind of how I'm feeling as well, Liam. And that's why I made note to mention the knockdown ratio here of Montel Jackson early on in the breakdown. And the physicality, that cheat code, it just seems to be a problem for some of these guys. And it's one of those things where if you don't respect it, I feel like it can bite you in the ass. So I don't know that I want to go against Montel Jackson, even though he may not be the savviest, technically speaking. If he just puts that overbearing size and power and grip strength to work here, I think he can get this fight to the ground. And even if he doesn't get the finish, he might be able to grind out a decision where most people have not been able to catch Julio Arce. I think I'm going to side with the favorite here on this one. Now, I do have – go ahead.
I was just going to say the one thing that I wanted to point out is sometimes there's not a obvious great bet heading into a fight. And like sometimes you just might want to pass on the fight or look for a prop or get more specific, because the truth is, like, if you have bet historically on Montel Jackson at this price in the UFC, you've lost money. Like the guy is 6-2 as a favorite for a slightly negative ROI. Like you basically just got your money back at best. If you had bet on them when he was minus 600 every time, you're not getting a huge return. And then when you bet on him when he was minus 250, he's like 1-1. So it's like, again, you're just looking at this picture where it's like, yeah, I expect Montel's going to win, but he hasn't always covered this price in the past. Conversely, you look at the other side, he's 0-2. Julio Arce as an underdog in the UFC. He's 0-2 at Madison Square Garden. Like there's just these reasons to not bet on either guy on the money line here, and maybe look for a lane in the prop market, look for a total that you like, something like that. But maybe neither of these guys is a great pre-fight side.
I like it. That's a good lesson for people to remember. The bookies got to put out lines. We don't always have to take them. Real quick, before we move on to our next fight, we have to shout out the king himself in the chat. Boston Nick MMA. Folks, for those of you who don't know, pubsportsradio.com, we're doing a weekly fight picking contest. It will have prizes. We've got $50 first place, merch for Pub Sports Radio. It's free to sign up. You put your picks in every fight, method, round, and we track them. We're going to do like a season of it, so you'll be able to see where you stand against everybody else. Our boy Boston Nick MMA took down the first contest here at Pub Sports Radio. So hail to the chief, Boston. You enjoy your victory lap there, Nicky Fish Tanks. You absolutely earned it, but I want somebody else to sign up and get in there and kick his ass this next week. Next fight up, we're going to go Mike Trizano taking on Seung Woo Choi. Mike Trizano and I have had a complicated relationship, Liam. We've had a bit of a go of it. We've been up and down. We were an item for a little while, and then we kind of fell out and got back together for a little fling, and now we're back on the skirts. Like, I can't figure out Mike Trizano. He's got kind of the raw abilities that I look for in a fighter, and he just hasn't put it all together the way that I would have liked him to. I expected him in his last couple fights especially to be able to, sit down a little bit more, use that power. He's hurt and he's rocked a couple of his opponents very recently, and then just was never able to finish up. That's kind of his thing, is he seems to front run a little bit and then lets the fight slip away the longer it goes. And I don't know if that's him not keeping his foot on the gas, or if that's him not maybe making the same adjustments that his opponents are, but it's been disappointing. He's 1-3 in his last 4, and I think I have bet him in 3 of those last 4. So I'm taking L's here on Mike Trizano. He plods forward, solid boxing, decent wrestling. It's that powerful counter hook that he's got that seems to do most of his damage. And I kind of had him in the like the Shane Burgos box, where he's a guy that could get away with some of this stuff being freakishly durable the way that he was. And then Lucas Almeida starches him in the 3rd round of last fight. So I got to rethink where I've got him in that spot. I do like what he brings to the table more often than not. His 2 UFC wins are over Ludovic Klein and Luis Pena. So a not bad resume. I mean, Pena, he's not in the UFC anymore, but he was a UFC caliber guy. He got dropped for other reasons. Grant Dawson, we've seen he's good. Klein, he just saved his job and showed us that he belongs here. Hakeem Duaru, Lucas Almeida, like, these are not bad names. So the level of competition, it's decent, nothing to write home about. Seung Woo Choi, 10-5. He's on an 0-2 run. Got finished by Caceres. That's a bad look. I had him bigly that night, Liam. I did not expect Alex Caceres to climb this man like a tree and choke him out the way that he did. Almost had him dead in that first round. Caceres reminding me of Angela Hill. No idea how he got out of that first round, taking the shot that he did, and then the illegal knee follow-up afterwards. But Choi loses a split to Kalibao, really struggled with the speed of those last 2 opponents. And I think that's kind of a key here, is that Mike Trizano is not nearly as lithe and as fast as people like Caceres and Kalibao. He's got a brick head on him, very durable, He got stanky legged a couple times in the Josh Kalibau fight, really showed off that heart, that durability, kept himself in the fight impressively. And several times I thought he could have gone down and been out, but he punched his way right back into it. I like his long sideways, karate style stance, always pumps that range finding jab out there. And he switches between the straight punches and then the big looping hooks that really take advantage of that arm reach that he's got. 3-inch reach advantage here. You've got Seung Choi as a small favorite, and I think I like Choi. If I'm going to bet this fight, I think I like Choi in a bounce back spot here, Liam. He's a -155. Mike Trizano is a +135. But as I've talked about, my ex-girlfriend, Mike Trizano, and I have been on the rocks up and down. He is just primed to bite me in the ass if I decide to bet against him this week, Liam. So talk to me about the stylistic matchup here, man. What do you see?
Yeah, this is another interesting fight, man. Mike Trizano, guy that I like. Again, personally, talking about the same gym as we're talking about last fight. So, they're going to be looking for some momentum, but it also could go the other way. What if you go and you watch your teammate, potentially get finished like I expect could happen? That could be a problem. When you're next up in the back, like, oh my God, like, I can't believe that just happened. Like, I train with that guy every day. So these are the kind of things that we don't always think about, but they're human beings, right? And they're people at the end of the day. And like, if their friend and their buddy just gets finished brutally or something, or has an injury or doesn't get the result he wants, it's just like, that's an emotional drain on you before you got to go do your job. Seung Choi probably is just there to do his job. So again, just a little bit more of that emotional attachment, a little bit more of a potential distraction. Now, the Lucas Almeida fight, brutal knockout. I had Lucas Almeida there. I had him inside the distance.
Great call.
Thank you, sir. That was a fight where I'm looking at Lucas Almeida and I said to myself, listen, he might lose the fight because, Mike Trizano is a talented guy, but at the end of the day, he was a huge plus number and he's a very dangerous guy. Mike Trizano is going a decision with everybody. This way, that way, and the other way. Win, lose, draw, split this way, that way. It's like, and not all these fighters are extremely high level. Pena's now out of the UFC. Like you mentioned, Giannetti, I think he probably has earned his way, back to this level. But again, a guy who's like fringe UFC level at this point. So, these are questionable fights where he's going to decision. He's not setting himself apart from these guys. And he does have that Ultimate Fighter label, which is why he's sticking around, through some of this adversity. But he's really got to get back on the horse here, or he could be staring down the barrel of, back on the regional scene, working his way up. And I think that, for Seung Choi, he was a guy that people were really thinking is like taking off to the moon. Like, he's the next guy up in the division. And he's created a lot of resistance for most of the guys he's fought. The guys that have given him a lot of trouble tend to go out there and grapple him a lot. We haven't seen Mike do a lot of grappling in his fights. Hasn't pushed it a lot. He goes out there and, like I mentioned, he likes to kickbox. If these guys have put in a grappling-based game plan where they've just been scrapping with each other on the mats every day and we see them both coming out hunting subs, I'm going to be freaking cheering from the rooftop. # no quit in New York. But it's also a question for me of, if I haven't seen it, can I expect it? And so I do think that there might be, a pretty clean path on the feet to hurting Mike Trizano. It's been 5 months since that fight where he was brutally knocked out. It hasn't been an eternity. He hasn't had a lot of time off to rest, recover, recuperate. He's got to get back in there. And, Seung Choi, say what you will about, maybe he's lost a couple of these fights. I bet Josh Kulabau, by the way, who everybody has underrated for a long time, I had bet him the night that he got a draw against Jourdain as well. So, I feel like there's certain times when you can identify these fighters that people can't really get a great read on. And Seung Choi is definitely one of them, where people love to go bet him when he's, supposed to win bigly, but, they get trepidatious about him sometimes in other spots. And I just feel like this is a matchup that, the UFC is trying to put him back in a position to win. I do think that this is a fight where, Trizano's backs up against the wall. Sometimes pressure creates diamonds. Sometimes, as Chael Sonnen likes to say, it creates a fatigue. I think that a lot of factors here point me towards Seung Choi, but it's a fight that I'm going to do a little more studying on before I place a bet one way or the other. Closely lined. Yep.
I hear you. Yeah, the close line also throws me a little bit here, but I'm glad you mentioned some of that, Liam. I wish I could show you my screen, my notes here, because And my last note, my last line is feels like a get right spot for Seung Choi. Like that's exactly what I wrote. That I'm like, this feels like the UFC is going, all right, guys, like we're kind of done with one of you. We think one of you is going to get right. You guys figure it out. I think I'm leaning on the Choi side personally, especially with my hopes of Trizano's durability dreams being shattered in his last fight. Choi hits hard, man. If he gets in that kind of a kickboxing fight with Seung Choi, I think he's probably in for another short night. Choi hits really, really hard. The grappling is the big question because
it's suspect. It's straight up suspect.
I've always said that Mike Trizano can grapple, Liam. Every single time I've bet on him, I've been like, he can wrestle. He never wrestles. Like, if he comes out and wrestles, this fight can be very, very different. But I obviously cannot trust him to come out and wrestle because he just refuses to do it.
I understand, man. I truly get it. This is a fight for me that's screaming right now pass. Because the other thing that stood out, and I'll leave you with this, Tapology right now, 81% of the votes are on Seung Choi. But the line does not say minus 400, my friends. So right. Just that's something to consider. If everybody agrees Seung Choi is the side and they're not moving the number, you have to ask yourself who is standing against me and why do they have so much more money?
It's so true. And Liam, just let me tell you my pain, my friend, because you and I spoke last week about none other than the Olympian Marco Madsen. And I do this podcast on Mondays. Everybody listening knows I come to the show on Mondays. I purposefully put my earphones on. I do not listen to Brady and Uncle Wheezy when they do their Stat Digger show on Sundays until after my show because I don't want that bias involved in my own product. And then I go back and I listen to some of the people like yourself, like them, like my guy Dan Tom and my guy Dan Levy and the Club and Sub. There's too many guys to shout out. We've got a good little community going. Anyway, I go back and I listen to everybody else, and that helps me make some chess moves towards the end of the week. But on Monday, the opinions are my own. And I thought I was going to be sneaky as fuck, Liam. I was like, nobody's picking Marco Madsen. Nobody's coming in here this week picking Marco Madsen. And then I jump on Twitter on Tuesday or Wednesday and Thursday and Marco Madsen. Fuck! I was like, no! Anytime you end up being on a public dog in MMA, it just doesn't end well.
Yeah, man. And honestly, there's some value, there's some benefit at times to waiting until later in the week to place your bet. Even if you have your read, even if you know, this is something I'm going to look to move in on, you could just wait because oftentimes the public likes to bet late in the week. So if you're waiting on a number to get better for you, that's a sharp side, you want to wait and see that the line's moving that way. For example, I had a position on Amanda Lemos at plus 200 because I believed that was the peak. And it was probably, Friday, midday, something like this, maybe Thursday, late night, something like that. Right. Then it comes to, Saturday, I'm recording my show and I see that she's moved to plus 222 on Bet Online. And I'm like, I have to have some of that. And then right before the main event, and I believe it's because they had a lot of parlay liability on Marina Rodriguez, they started upping the price even more. It's plus 230. I just kept adding to it because I'm like, I thought it was good at plus 200. I think it's great at plus 225. I think it's excellent at plus 230. And that was the kind of thing where it doesn't happen every time like that, where you can just read it so clearly. But for me, that's what it felt like. And there's value sometimes in waiting and giving yourself more information. You might even get a worse number. You might have to go from minus 175 to minus 200. But now you say, wow, okay, that's the confirmation. That's when they're booking at $50,000 limits to anybody over the counter, they have now moved the number to this. These are the kind of things you want to look for.
Excellent tips for the people listening, Liam. Thank you very much for that. I've said many, many times, and to you specifically, that reading the market is one of the things that I'm worst at and absolutely need to work on. So people take notes, pay attention when this man speaks on matters like that, because he knows. He knows. All right, everybody. Moving the show right along. Your main event, Karolina Kowalkiewicz taking on Silvana, Gomez, Juarez. No, I kid. This is a fun fight, Liam, and one that I'm a little scared of. So Karolina, 13-7, making kind of her second run here in the UFC. She snapped her 5-fight losing streak last time with a win. and looked pretty good doing it. Not gonna lie, looked pretty good doing it. But I actually tried to fade her in her last fight against Felice Herrig. Liam, I got a little overexcited. There are times when there's a fighter who you can put your thumbprint on and go, you know what? I'm going to fade the shit out of you. And then the UFC matches them up with such a good matchup. And you go, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it because you want to fade. You're blinding, you're blind to the matchup and you're fading the fighter. And I took Felice Herrig with full confidence, and that did not end well. That's how badly I want to fade Karolina Kowalkiewicz here in this spot. She's a slick striker, man. She's light on her feet. She's fast. She's got smooth BJJ, but she's never been physical. I mean, she gets out-bullied by everybody. Jessica Panay had her way with this woman when she came back on the ground. So she's always live for that sneaky, arm bar. She's got good hips. And on the feet, she's high volume, but Liam, she is defensively void. Like she was getting lit up by Felice Herrig, who, God love her, if she had any athleticism or power left in her, she probably would have hurt her more in that fight. Karolina just blocked punches with her face. Silvana Gomez Juarez is 11-4. Now, she's 37 years old. That's a bit concerning for me because you're not a prospect at 37. You're kind of on the you're on the journeyman stage at that point. You're running the last laps of your career at that point, but she's training out of Intram, and she actually looks like she's improving. We've seen her kind of give up meme arm bars on the ground. She's gone back and got her purple belt. Like, she's working and getting better on her overall mixed martial arts game. The big thing is she's got nukes in her hands, Liam. We don't see women who hit like Silvana Gomez Juarez in this weight class more often than not. She plants and she throws literally, it looks like she's throwing a hammer. Like, that's how she throws that overhand right sometimes. And when she connects, people fold. This is a spot where it's -110 either side. Pick 'em price tag. It looked like some money early was coming in on Karolina Kowalkiewicz. I think I have to stick with my gut here and talk about how Karolina posted that Instagram photo, man, after she was all beaten up with the eyes swollen shut, not wanting to come back, not wanting to do it. She's already retired. She threw in the towel once already. She does not like getting hit in the face. And that's exactly what Silvana does to people. If Karolina had the chops to wrestle her and take her to the ground, that's a maybe different story. But I don't think she's physically strong enough to out wrestle Silvana. Now, if we end up in a ground scramble, Silvana's probably going to tap again because that's what she does, Liam. She gives up arm bars. I like violence in this spot, which is scary for it being a women's MMA spot. But I really think Silvana Gomez Juarez probably connects with Karolina once or twice. And KK decides real quick she doesn't want to be in there. I think it's Silvana, and I think it's Silvana by KO.
Yeah, I don't mind that. That seems pretty logical here, frankly. You just look at Karolina Kowalkiewicz's body of work. She's beaten only Felice Herrig since 2018. It's just, that's not a great body of work.
Broken Felice Herrig, Liam. An absolutely physically ravaged Felice Herrig.
Yeah, and then in this case, you look at Karolina is definitely the more known quantity. She's got a bigger fan base around the world. Those things are certainly true. And you talked about the fact that 37, it's really too old to say that somebody's a prospect in MMA. But it is interesting enough that, number one, women's MMA, we see women last a lot longer at the top of the division, and Karolina has shown a lot of signs of regression. She's lost, 5-round title fights, gotten hit with a lot of big shots, really taken a lot of damage at this level. But she does have that grappling upside. I do think that in this fight, that is her obvious number one go-to. You're seeing early action come in on the under 2.5 rounds. It's because both these women have a path to finish, which is somewhat rare for women's MMA, but we really have it here. Silvana Gomez Juarez has very poor grappling defense. She's been submitted twice with the same belly down armbar series by two people that are not primary grapplers. That being said, somebody who is a armbar bust fighter, everybody wanted to bet in the last fight when the obvious play was the under. And that is, again, where I would have to come out here, is that I would probably prefer taking an under than laying chalk in this fight. But I do think that Silvana Gomez Juarez is heavy-handed. That's not a great matchup. She's probably the more physical of the two. She's probably a little less shop worn in terms of damage she's taken. She's really never beaten a great fighter. And she did take some shots against Na Liang, but it's just like I see her being the much more dangerous fighter while this fight's on the feet. And I don't like what I've seen from Kowalkiewicz overall in this recent run and performances. So I like that she got her redemptive win, but this is now back on like a pay-per-view stage. This feels like it's a little bit more of a high-pressure situation. Frankly, when she was in MSG, she got beat up really badly by Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So back to the scene of the crime against another big puncher. This doesn't seem like a great recipe for me.
I hear you, man. I hear you. I don't know what that noise was. That was me trying to say two different words at the same time, and they came out as so I do apologize for the audio listeners. But no, I'm right there with you, Liam. I think this one, frankly, it comes down to physicality. I think I like the under. I'm going to wait for that KO prop to come out. I think I'm going to look to bet that knockout prop. I also could see Karolina maybe trying to hang in there and just getting, losing 5-1 on volume and then surviving one big hit to stay in the fight. And that's why I kind of want to play the money line just to not get too fancy with it, even though, like you, I don't really want to lay -110 with someone like Silvana Gomez Juarez, but I still don't want to have that fancy play syndrome where I end up overlooking an easy opportunity when I've got the right read and I make the wrong bet. So I think I'm going Silvana. We'll figure it out later in the week how we do this one. If I could throw up the Old Faithful meme, Liam, the SpongeBob Old Faithful, there are no happy endings in MMA, folks. KK got her happy ending last time out. I don't think it's happening again. She should have got the win and called it a day. I think this is where the UFC goes, okay, we got you your layup. You're back on track. Now you're back in the shit. And I don't think she can handle being back in the shit. So we'll see what happens here on Saturday. Next fight up, Liam. We are talking about Ottman Azaitar taking on Matt the Steamroller Frevola. And I'm scared shitless about making a pick on this one because our guy Matt Frevola has gotten super into the community, made a Twitter, followed a bunch of people, myself included. And I hate tweeting picks when fighters are following me because I want to support these people. I love them and cherish the work they do. And I never want to upset any of them, but it kind of comes with the territory when you're doing a sports gambling podcast to give out those picks, man. Azaitar, Mr. Potato Power himself, 13-0, undefeated, big time finisher. He's only got one win by decision, Liam. One. This guy's got crazy fast hands. He's got good feints. He sets his opponents up, and then he just nukes people. He's like the Prince of Morocco or something, too. Like, he has no reason to be fighting, Liam. The thing that's maybe the most terrifying about this man, he's a member of the Eagle Squad, trains with murderers, and he does it for fun. Like, this guy doesn't need the money. This is all about machismo. It's the accolades. Like, he does this shit because he can, and he's at the UFC level taking heads. So it's terrifying to me ever to think about betting against the kind of power he brings to the table. Matt Frevola, 9-3. He's an incredible wrestler with a great gas tank. Constant pressure, constant pressure. Big ground and pound if he can get you down there. He's very fast. He starts quick, and he really breaks people. The thing for me is he wings these wild, big power hooks, Liam, and I'm worried about the chin. I'm worried about the durability. He's been cracked, I know, by some of the hardest hitters in the weight class, but we've seen signs of that durability getting chipped at. I mean, he got caught by Polo Reyes, and you think back to that day in 2018, and it's like, man, he's a young kid. He's a young kid. He got in there and got a little overzealous and got caught. It happens. The fact that he was able to grind out a guy like Jalen Turner, I give nothing but respect for that kind of a performance. But Terrence McKinney, I know McKinney hits hard. I know he hits hard. He starches people. But God, dude, it was a 1-2. It was like the first two punches he threw that had this man completely out of his mind. And I put out a Twitter, Liam. I put out a Twitter poll, and I wanted to know who the people thought hit harder between Terrence McKinney and Ottman Azaitar. 64% of you said Terrence McKinney is the harder hitter. So Potato Power is down at 35% here. But that's my big question mark in this spot, Liam, is I think Ottman Azaitar hits really fucking hard, and he's only going to need one. The longer this fight goes, obviously, the more it's going to favor our guy, the Steamroller. And I'm rooting for him. He's a prospect I very much enjoy, and I would love to see him get a win here. But money has come in on Ottman. It's driven this thing down to a pick'em price tag now. Talk to me, Liam. How do you feel about this fight? Which direction are you leaning?
I gotta tell you, man, I'm not liking the general theme and tenor that this show is taking, because I keep picking against these New York guys, but man, this is a tough one, bro. This is a tough one because I like Matt Frevola. I think he's a great fighter. I think he's a great guy, but there are certain things in fighting that you can change, and there's certain things you can't change. You know, I think the things that he can change that would really benefit him is to not brawl quite as much, because he's a pretty technical guy. He gets off good strikes. You know, he has very good wrestling, good takedowns. He gets on top of people, but you know, he also has a tendency to brawl, man. Genaro Valdez last time, he about killed that man. I don't know what Carlos Beltran has against Genaro Valdez. Maybe he said something wrong to him in the back, but he just let that man get absolutely mollywopped for no reason. Just let him get dropped over and over and over, keep getting back up, get dropped again, take 50 more unanswered. It was pretty wild stuff. But, you know, Matt Frevola can obviously be a good hammer. You know, when he was on top of Jalen Turner, he made him work. He beat him up, you know. When Matt Frevola wins, he's going to look like a huge hindsight favorite. But the problem is when he loses, you know, he looks like the biggest underdog in the card. He gets hit with one punch and he falls over or something. And that's hard, you know, especially as a bettor. It's hard to invest in guys like that. You know, I've had a couple bets that I can remember. My least favorite maybe is Gavin Tucker against Dan Ige. It was one punch, and we're all done. That rip up the plus 135, no value there. We couldn't make it through one exchange. And so that's the problem for me here. You know, it's just like styles do make fights at the end of the day, and both these guys like to brawl. You look at what stands out about Matt Frevola's past wins. When you're a big, tall, long guy and you think you got it all figured out, he's a short king. He's going to sit down on those low ankle takedowns. He's going to get you under the waist and pick you up, dive on your hips. But I think that Matt Frevola might struggle here because he's going against somebody who's actually slightly shorter than he is. And he does a lot of the same things. They both like to stand in the pocket, wing crazy hooks, and bang it out. And one guy has been nuked before, and I'm talking about Azaitar regionally. I think his name was Leary. Drops him, has him rocked. He's like half, out of it, gets back up to his feet on a single leg, and absolutely mollywops the guy. So it's just like, I do think Azaitar is very dangerous in his own right. He's a really big hitter. And the fact that the UFC kept him around after all of the, excitement on Fight Island, I think speaks volumes as well. So I kind of like Azaitar to get the job done here. Hate picking against these New York guys, but I just feel like that's probably incoming. He's cashed 2 times now that KO prop in the UFC, plus 220, plus 110. So it looks like, they're lining it with some fear and hesitancy, like he could get the knockout again.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. And that pains me because I don't want to go against Matt Frevola. I think he's the better all-around martial artist, and that always scares me when you go against the guy that you think is technically the better all-around martial artist. But if we're going chin for chin, which I know at some point in this fight we're gonna, I'm gonna go with the guy that survived the chinning and not bet on the guy who has failed to survive the chinning. So yeah, man, it's Team Potato here for me. I always try to get. I love the what's in the bag from Benil Dariush. Every week we'll have to find that clip and retweet it and throw it out there. Miles Hughes in the chat, asking about the whole injury situation. Man, I would love to get in on that, but we would derail the show. We're already an hour in, and we could talk for 2 hours on the subject of injuries and fight fixing. I think the short answer is the fighters need healthcare because these guys get paid. Their paycheck comes from stepping in that cage. Man, if I've got a busted up leg, I can sit at this computer and talk to you about fights for 6 hours. No problem. These guys can't go get paid if they got a busted leg. They got to fight. And at the end of the day, I think that makes for some sketchy situations because they got to put the food on the table somehow. And that's just the world we live in at this point, sadly. All right. Next up, we've got Andre Petroski taking on Wellington Turman. And one of my favorite fades ever, Liam. I do not believe in Mr. Wellington Turman. I don't like Wellington Turman, and I cannot believe that Misha sold me down the river so hard the last time out, man. I went hard on Misha Cirkunov. And it's been just the same story this entire year, Liam. It's changing of the guard. It's these older fighters that are getting escorted out the door this year by these younger upcoming prospects. That was the memeiest meme armbar we've seen in men's MMA in a long time. And someone like Misha Cirkunov should not have gotten caught by that armbar, but here we are. Wellington Turman trains out of Teixeira MMA. I very much respect what they're doing over at that gym. You can expect him to improve, but running the tape on this guy kills me basically every single time. He's a BJJ black belt. He does like to attack that body lock. He likes to poke at the legs and drag you to the ground. He does have long, straight punches you like to see, but he's a bit low volume. Dips his head. You know, I think there's some uppercut opportunities for people because he seems almost afraid to leave his chin up when he punches. So he goes, you know, head first when he throws some of these punches. But his striking really is just to close that distance, just to get close in tight to you, grab you, drag you to the floor, and get to work where he really wants to be. This guy got KO'd by Andrew Sanchez, Liam. Like, that's something that I will never let go. That's the kind of thing that I will never give you a pass for. Like, if you get knocked out by Andrew Sanchez, who knocks out literally nobody, I am going to try to fade your durability. He's got an 85% takedown defense, though. I will give him credit there where it's due. He is taking on Petroski, 8-1, and a guy who I have really disrespected. He comes out of Gracie, Philly, so no surprise there. I've tried to go against him more times than I should have. I don't know why I find ways to bet against the Gracie, Philly team. I'm sorry, but I do. He's your big, hairy, muscly wild man, a man after my own heart here, Liam. This guy, shit-eating crazy, comes into the cage and does insane shit. Like, it's all explosion. It's all power. He trains in the mountains, roaring from the rooftops. Like, you gotta love the guy. But the one thing I really love is the transitions that he has from the front headlock position. The way he goes from attacking front chokes, the front headlock, the anaconda, he'll butterfly sweep to roll, and he'll transition to the back. Like, this guy is slick on the ground. And I keep thinking he's, you know, a round 3 candidate where he should gas out the way he does everything with muscles so often. But then the fight gets deep, and he's Yoel Romero style, man. He finds a way to chill and reload and take a deep breath. And then he comes and he does the damn thing again. He never quite fades hard enough for you to get him out of there. In fact, he's finished his opponents in the 3rd round a couple of times. Petroski is going to have a 1-inch reach advantage here in this spot over Wellington Turman. I like Petroski in this spot, naturally, because I want to fade Wellington, because I always want to fade Wellington. The one thing that I'm a little fearful of here in this spot, Liam, is that Petroski's really got nothing for him on the feet. He's not a good striker. I mean, it's literally just stand back and wing an overhand, and that's it. Like, that's all he's got. He just does that on repeat the entire fight until he gets you on the ground. Now, the ground and pound is deadly once he gets you there. But Turman is the better striker on the feet. It pains me to say that, but believe it or not, he is. I do think that Petroski can chin him at any point in time, landing one of those bombs in this spot. And if he decides to go jiu-jitsu for jiu-jitsu, which camp are we siding on here, Teixeira or Philly? So I'm going to ride with the favorite here, Petroski. I'm maybe leaning more towards violence. I don't like the price tag. -190 on Petroski, +170 Wellington Turman. Are we stopping the Philly hate here on this one, Liam?
Well, the Philly, love train finally did fall off the tracks. We saw it with, unfortunately, Pat Sabatini got absolutely blasted there. Shout out Damon Jackson. And then, I think there was another one. I'm drawing a blank. Oh, Sean Brady. I mean, obviously that one didn't turn out so well either. Yeah, tough go at it there for the Philly boys. But overall, the team has put together a very, very solid body of work. If you wanted to criticize anything, it would just be the cardio a little bit. I don't even know that it's a cardio problem as much as a pacing problem and a, being muscly as shit and going hard problem. But it's definitely something that we've seen in their fights. I think that Wellington Turman is a guy I've definitely faded in the past, just because I felt like his chin was very suspect, right? He's been knocked out before. He's been hurt. He's been in really compromised situations as well. But he does have a good grappling game. There's no taking away from that. Misha Cirkunov, normally you get him out of there by testing his chin, which isn't very good. But that wasn't the case there. He's actually a very good grappler. He has poor cardio as well. And I felt like that was a little bit of the problem there. You know, they got into a few too many grappling scrambles for Misha Serkinov, and he was like, all right, I'm looking for a way out of here. So that to me was a problem. I don't bet on Misha Serkinov based on a fight with somebody else we'll talk about later on the card. But I think that Petroski has looked a little bit better since he's been in the UFC. He's gotten some grappling competition wins over UFC level fighters. Eric Anders submitted him quickly, beat Phil Hawes in a grappling match as well. So I do think Petroski's showing his class in the grappling. Nick Maximoff, guy who was known for his grappling, that was what he was touted for coming in. He went out there and out-grappled a couple guys. He got submitted instantly. And by the way, guys, I had that night plus 350 on the Petroski money line. Absolutely ridiculous and absurd money line. I think we can all agree in hindsight. But then on top of that, I had $5, my biggest regret of my life, $5 on Petroski round one sub plus 2,500. Brutal. I could have been rich, dude, if I just put a nice $100 there, you know, take the family out, have a vacation, you know, but either way. I just feel like Petroski, he is the more dynamic grappling threat early. I think his club and sub potential is going to be there. But I don't think that this is a fight that I have strong conviction on. I feel like both these guys will be future fades if they win this fight. You know, I do think Petroski's got a lot of round one upside, but you'll remember Brian Battle, not known for his grappling prowess and chops, submitted him in the second round because he got tired, you know, and that's the kind of thing that happens to him sometimes. So I think that we will see if Wellington can keep up that pace rate and not get nuked. If he does, he wins the fight. If he gets finished before then, you know, we're not going to be having this conversation, and I won't be surprised by either outcome there, but I'd have to lean ever so slightly with Petroski to get the job done at this stage of the week. We'll see what happens with the line, though. I do agree that the line is interesting here.
I think it's very interesting, and our guy Ryan comes in with a great comment, man. It's interesting that he goes from plus 335 against Maximov to minus 200 against Turman. Yeah, man, that's the kind of swings, you know, recency bias. You're only as good as your last fight in MMA. How accurately were we assessing one or either of those guys? The lines seem to be overcorrecting maybe a little bit here in this spot, but you're still never going to catch me betting on Wellington Turman. So for me, it's favorite or pass. I don't like the line. It's probably going to be pass or pass here for this one. Maybe look for some violence, maybe look for a prop, but not a money line that I'm super interested in at this point. Eric Betts fights in the house. What's up, buddy? Thanks for jumping in. I know, man. I know the stupid freaking daylight savings time. I apologize for the jump here in the time zones. All right, everybody. Next fight up. Erin Blanchfield taking on Meatball Molly McCann. And I just want to come out and say, Liam, that I fully expected to be betting Meatball Molly in this spot. I thought that the line was a little bit disrespectful of her skill set. I've been nothing but high on Erin Blanchfield, singing her praises from the rafters. And I was going to side with Molly because she's with the right team right now. She's got the push finally behind her, the Barstool squad over there. They're not going to throw her into the fire. They're trying to get her wins. They're softballing her. And I'm like, you know what? Her wrestling is bad as people are giving it credit for. And I think she is going to show everybody that she can hang in this matchup and at least pay off that price tag. Now, I ran the tape. I am firmly in the Blanchfield side of things. You know, you go back and you watch the Tyler Santos fight, and as much as she did give her own in that spot, man, she did bloody up Tyler Santos. She gave up 5 for 7 on the takedowns. And that's something that Blanchfield is just so slick with. That body lock and trip series that she does, she's relentless, hanging on people, dragging them to the floor with that. She's got a 4-inch reach advantage here in this spot, which is going to be a big, big deal when you're dealing with those big power shots of Molly McCann. She's going to struggle to get in tight and close that distance. The one thing that brings me pause, Blanchfield is 23 years old. We see young kids make young mistakes. I talk about that all the time, man. These young prospects, they're fantastic. They look great. Right up until the point that you realize that they're 23 and 24 years old and they do stupid shit sometimes. She can make a mistake. But you know what, Liam? She did that in her last fight. She had a rough go of it early with JJ. I was starting to shake in my boots a little bit. I had Erin Blanchfield in a parlay, and I thought JJ was starting to take over a little bit. I thought she was taking a little bit of the momentum in that fight, and she found a way to win. Legends find a way to win, Liam, even when it gets bad, when it gets dirty, when the chips are down. If you can overcome that and find a way to win, that's the sign of a prospect you want to hang your hat on. That's the kind of person you want to get behind. And Erin Blanchfield absolutely earned my respect with that move there, sinking in that choke and getting out of that greasy spot. So yeah, man, I'm going to say Erin Blanchfield. Once again, though, like I said, my early inclination was this line is a little wide. I don't necessarily like the minus 400. This is a young women's MMA prospect after all, but I'm going to side with the favorite, I think, here in this spot and not get insane. All right, man, talk to me. Which side are we leaning here?
Oh man, this is a really tough one, right? I think that, in terms of New York representation on the card, Erin Blanchfield, stands out among the rest as like, who's got the highest ceiling of the New York fighters on this card? Erin Blanchfield, probably by a mile, right? Like, she's got excellent grappling. She has another Renzo Gracie background, so really like that about her game. But you're noticing that this line did open up a little bit higher. There's minus 500. It's crept down just a bit. And it looks like, there's people out there that are buying into Erin at this number. But there's other people that are offering some Molly resistance right now. In the last fight, you talked about JJ had some moments of success. There was no resistance in that last market, right? The number ran out to like minus 500, which is where it opened up here. And then, it didn't quite look that wide. You look at Molly McCann. I actually listened to an interview with Din Thomas that I thought was really interesting, where he said, he's a personal friend of Molly McCann. He said, Molly goes out there to have fun and to entertain and to do those things. But this fight, she told me she's taking a lot more seriously because she understands where she's at in her career, where now she has a fan base and she could, do something like request a title shot with a win because she's on a 3 or 4 fight win streak at that point. It's like, there's some things starting to fall into place for her. They are looking to do shows in London. Like, there's just things that they want her to have success. Make no mistake about that. Now, the problem is there's only a level that we could get to, right? There is this, can she overcome the grappling deficits? Talia Santos is huge. Huge. The reason I bet her against Valentina Shevchenko, which, by the way, come on, guys, come on. You know in your heart that I should have got that one. Man. But anyways, plus 450, 2.5 units. I was that confident. Anyways, I said I thought Talia Santos was way too big, was way too physical for the number that we were getting. I was like, she's going to go out there and contend. That's with Valentina Shevchenko, right? We talk about intangibles. We talk about certain physical attributes. I try and look at how people match up with certain body types and body styles. Why would JJ Aldrich offer you some resistance? She's kind of got that, I really mean this in a polite way, like a stumpier build, just a little bit lower to the ground, a little bit heavier hips, right? I feel like
it's a good fighter build. That's not
exactly. That's what. But I'm just trying to put it very delicately in 2022. Whatever you're trying to say, you know what I mean. Anyways, she's a little bit difficult to maneuver around. I think that the same thing is probably going to be true of Molly McCann in this instance, just because she is a meatball. She is pretty short, stocky for the division. She's pretty strong. I don't think she's going to get gassed out in this fight. I think she could push a hard 15-minute pace. So I think that there's some question marks here. There's some unanswered questions about what happens if this fight gets caught up on the feet for longer than she expects. I bet on Sean Brady under the premise that I thought he was going to take down Bilal Muhammad. And once he took him down one time, it was going to look elementary. But he did not ever sniff one takedown. He did not ever get in on the hips. It was a big cage. He chased him around all night. The pressure of a big pay-per-view got to him. He's a young man. He'll be back. He'll rebuild from there. But it's something that I'm not going to get caught in the same kind of traps and mistakes over and over again. That's something I try to avoid. And in this case, you're being asked to say 80% of the time, Erin Blanchfield beats somebody who's a 9-fight UFC veteran who has not gotten finished by some potent grapplers in the past. She's been able to be out there working hard and making them fight for 15 hard minutes. And now she's 32 years old. She has a huge fan base in women's MMA, frankly, maybe one of the biggest international stars in the company right now. Hear the words I'm saying. I mean that. Go check the numbers. So it's just like, I do think that Molly McCann has rode the Patty the Batty train maybe as far as it'll go. Maybe here is when she just gets audited and this is where it's all over. But at 23 years of age, I think there's enough of a question mark where I'm not willing to say Erin Blanchfield is the lock of the week and add her to all your parlays. I think she's a great fighter. I think she's very talented. I think Erin Blanchfield by sub is something I'm going to have my eye on for every fight that she has in the UFC because I credit her jiu-jitsu that high. But I'm also not going to get out over my skis in women's MMA when physicality plays a big role and somebody who's 23 and maybe at a different stage of their physical development. I'm 24. I'm getting a little stronger day by day. I like to feel that way. You don't know what's going to happen. That's what I'm saying. But you don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 years, 3 years, where Erin Blanchfield could become a UFC champion before Molly McCann ever fights for a UFC title. But it still could be her night on Saturday night. And that's the kind of thing that makes me second guess the big price. I'm also seeing some market support for my theory early on. So hands off so far, but I think if anything, it's a dogger pass situation for me at the current odds.
Shit, Liam, I'm over here second guessing myself, and you're bringing me right when I think he's out. He pulls me back in. That's where my brain was initially. Just first glance, hairs on the back of the neck. I went, you know what? I think I'm gonna play Meatball Molly, and now I'm second guessing myself because I'm bouncing all around now after doing the tape study and watching the chain grappling, man. I might just have to go big boy boots and suck it up and be like, all right, first instinct, play it small. Don't get crazy. I don't know. You guys, I'm all in my head now. I don't know what I'm going to do here yet. We'll see. So I think, Liam, one of the big things for me on this one is we know the barstool push, right? Like that's kind of the big thing that I'm like, am I getting suckered? Like, am I actually the guy that's being pulled in by the spinning elbows and the barstool push and riding the coattails of Patty the Batty? And I'm like, I got bit last week with Mark Madsen swimming with the fish all on the public dog here. I don't want to be that guy again because every son of a bitch that doesn't know a damn thing about sports betting or fighting, when you go down to buy your milk in the morning, they're going to be like, oh, you like fights? Yeah, Molly McCann this week. Let's go. Like that. Those are the guys who are going to be betting Meatball Molly. So that's kind of, I'm tinfoil hatting here that I'm like, I think I'm thinking too many levels, Liam. Have you ever played poker? Do you play poker, Liam? Okay. So
not well.
Well, so I took poker right before I started actually like doing the podcast, sports betting. I took poker super seriously. I thought that I was going to be like a semi-pro poker player as like my next alternate source of income. And I studied hard, man. I got a coach and everything for like 2 years. I was on that grind. And what you find out, and I feel like this applies here in sports betting as well as with poker, is that you have your initial success and you think you're good at something. You're really not. You're kind of the product of luck early on. You learn that you're not that good and you're okay with it and you build on that. And then you realize that maybe you are good and you push it a little too far and you start trying to think levels and you level yourself. You start second guessing and questioning and going deeper down the rabbit hole in spots where you probably shouldn't, because now you know what you're thinking. And it's where I'm thinking at this level. The opponent who I'm playing in the hand is thinking at this level, but because I'm up here, I'm doing this, and they catch me because, of course, they had the most obvious hand possible in a giant pot, but I thought maybe they could be bluffing because I saw him itch his eyebrow 2 hands ago. You can level yourself. And I think I'm leveling myself. So I'm going to just take a sit back. And I'm going to think about this one, folks, because I put a tweet out earlier in the week, Liam, that I was like, Molly should not be plus 300 in this spot. I tweeted that like 3 days ago. So yeah, I'm going to think good, long, and hard about this one because I'm twisted now. We've got Darth Westside. Thank you so much for the dono here. Weekly UFC contest. So much fun. Great pick. Saturday, Liam. Thank you very much for the support here, Darth. Glad you got in there and shouting out our guy, Liam Picks Fights. Everybody, real quick, we're going to hear a word from some of our sponsors. Help us keep the lights on here at Pub Sports Radio. We're going to take a short break. We will be right back for the rest of the card. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast on Pub Sports Radio. Lines are presented by Superbook Sports. We're talking UFC 281. I'm joined by none other than Liam Picks Fights, breaking down this awesome epic card here for you all. And my guy in the chat, Wizbet, saying Clint Kid Poker Negumereanu. No, you know what? Kid Poker before he got the hair transplant. Wiz Kid Poker before he got the hair transplant. That's where I'm sitting. All right. Next fight that we want to discuss with you all is gonna be Dominick Reyes taking on Ryan Superman Spann. And I am so pumped for this fight. We have got a guy in Dominick Reyes who has maybe one of the most confusing runs in the UFC that I have ever seen. Goat. No, I did not believe Imbe got banned. I hope not. That was I didn't see anything that she got banned. Maybe she's just not chatting. So no, we didn't do anything on on this end to ban her. Hope she's probably just logged off or something, but she's a regular supporter. So she's not getting banned. Don't worry. So on this fight, Liam, I am so excited to see what Dominick Reyes can do, because obviously he's coming off this awful 0-3 run that he's on. Two of those losses by finish. Jan and Jiri both put him out cold. Wondering a little bit about the heart, the desire, the durability at this point. You look back at the run that he had, and hey, 205 is a wasteland, Liam. Like, it's so easy to get to the title in that weight class compared to some of the others because there's just nobody there. Like, he took out Jared Cannonier, who, we know now Jared's a monster, but at 185. He took out Ovince St. Preux, who is twilighting. He took out Volkan Oezdemir in a close split decision, and that doesn't look good in hindsight because Volkan is not UFC championship caliber. And then he got the win off just a sacrifice, Chris Weidman. They threw that poor man into a title contender fight against Dominick Reyes, knowing full damn well that he had no chance with the condition that he was in at this stage of his career. And since then, he gave John Jones one of the best fights John Jones ever received and then rattled off those two losses. So I think the fact is that Dominick Reyes was a little overblown. He's riding off the hype of that fight with John Jones. One thought he should have won that fight. Everyone was expecting him to come back out and rule with an iron fist after, losing that first opportunity. And I think he maybe believed his own hype a little bit much. This kid is athletic, Liam. He's big. He's got a real awkward body type. He's got one of the longest torsos I have ever seen. He's got no legs. He's very stumpy. But he does have a left hand. He's got a big, powerful left hand. And actually, almost all of his offense comes from the left side. It's a left hand. It's a left body kick. He mixes in the wrestling really well. Like I mentioned, very athletic, very fast, good cardio. He's very strong with the shoulder pressure and the control positions on top, I noticed. 80% takedown defense rating so far here in his UFC run. Now, Ryan Spann, 20-7. He's built up a lot of experience. I cashed one of my favorite tickets of all time, that sub prop over Ion Cutelaba. Everyone called me crazy, and I'm having a bad year, Liam, but that was one of my bright spots where I called that one to a T. Ion stuck his neck into the guillotine like 4 times and managed to get out of it. Finally got one adjusted, and Ryan Spann put him to sleep there in that spot. But Ryan Spann, if we're talking about resumes, this man's been alternating wins and losses for a long time. If you're one of those tinfoil hat thinkers, he's coming off of a win, mind you, just, save that in the back of your pocket there. But he's basically a round one or bust fighter, man. Like, I thought he lost to Sam Alvey, quite frankly, in that fight back that started this whole thing in 2020, a split decision win over Sam, which easily could have gone the other way. Johnny Walker knocked him out in the first round after stank legging like 4 times in 30 seconds. I will never understand how Johnny Walker's body just, if you've done any like Googling, people that do like indie video games and stuff like that, where they do the ragdoll physics, like that's literally Johnny Walker when he gets hurt in an MMA fight. He flops all over the place. So then he KOs Misha Cirkunov, which again, in hindsight, okay, it is what it is. He gets bullied by Anthony Smith, which one of my favorite gatekeepers, and then takes out Ion Cutelaba in the first round. If he doesn't finish you in the first round, he's a confidence fighter. He kind of falls apart the longer the fight goes on. He's a good hammer and he's a bad nail. I mean, back in the day, he lost to Carl Roberson and Trevin Giles. Like, that's the kind of fighter we're dealing with here, Liam. This is a spot where I am not bullish whatsoever on a returning Dominick Reyes. But what I noticed when you run the tape, you go back and see, Anthony Smith, the shots that sat down this guy, Ryan Spann, they were all left hands. he had that left hand available to him anytime he wanted it. And Ryan Spann sat down twice in that fight. Anthony Smith doesn't knock many people down standing. And he was able to do it not once, but twice, clubbed and subbed him in this spot. I feel like I have to bet Dominick Reyes here. Minus 215 for Dominick Reyes. I think he's got the higher ceiling. I know it's scary to say coming off the back-to-back knockout losses, but it was two monsters in the weight class, the two most recent champions that knocked him out, not counting Glover, all honors to that man. But Dominick Reyes minus 215 feels like a fair price tag to me. I think he's got a better game plan. I think he's got more confidence in himself. I believe he's the more durable of the two fighters. And I think he's maybe even the more offensively potent of the two fighters. So I'm kind of thinking about laying the chalk here in this spot. Liam, how do you feel about this matchup?
Clint, I've had my eye, just ever so slightly tilted towards this matchup since I was taping Ozzy Diaz for the Contender Series because there wasn't all that much tape out there on him. And one of the things I was able to find on YouTube was Ozzy Diaz versus Dominick Reyes back in the day. And I ended up, telling people I thought that who did he fight? Piper, right? Yeah, he ends up getting knocked out by Piper. And I told people I thought Piper could be dangerous because, Piper had some submissions. He had some big power. And Dominick Reyes had the same thing when they fought back in the day. And he had some submission wins when he was fighting as an amateur. He had some early in his pro career as well, but he seemed to fall in love with the hands a little bit, fall in love with boxing and going out there and striking. But the thing that I want to put in perspective and just remind everybody is that Dominick Reyes has 3 losses, right? 3 losses in the UFC, each one of them to a UFC champion. So before you're going to say Dom Reyes some bum now and he can't win a fight, it's like, yeah, he lost to the 3 most recent light heavyweight champions. Other than that, he's been fighting main events, co-main events, the best guys in the world the whole way out. So I just think that, he hasn't had the toughest run up to the title. So that leaves you in a position where it's harder to evaluate his talent. But the truth is he had a lot of potential from early on. It was very evident in his early fights. He got a lot of big wins. He got fast-tracked up to the title with very few fights. And he almost beat Jon Jones under those circumstances. Now, what happened? The market got way too high on him. So then he comes off the loss to Jon Jones, and I bet 2.5 units on Jan Blachowicz as a plus money underdog because I said to myself, okay, what? You got credit because you lost? It's like, I just have to assume that Jan Blachowicz has more UFC experience. He can go out there. It's going to be a striking-based fight. This guy hits very hard. He's got momentum of his own. This is a classic letdown spot. So for me, Reyes was talking about at that time, like, yeah, basically I beat Jon Jones, like whatever. And he thought, like, because I beat Jon Jones, I'm the best guy in the world. And then he goes out there, he gets humbled. He goes out there against Yuri. I thought he was looking all right. Yuri, you got to remember, he absolutely butchered Volkan Ozdemir, made him look bad. He had a very tough fight with Glover. That was a fight that was competitive until Dom Reyes started to get hit too much, and he started to get hit too clean. And Yuri's a freaking weirdo, and he hits like a truck. So he just absolutely blasted him out of there. And I love Yuri, man. I bet an absolute max hammer on Yuri the last time he fought Glover. So it's just like, I don't have hesitation to go after some of these spots. But I think that this is the kind of fight where it's light heavyweight. You don't want to get caught with your pants down necessarily laying a 70% money line at light heavyweight when these are 2 guys swinging leather. But the truth is Ryan Spann is just fade worthy for me. He has quit positions. He's found a way out of several fights. The fact that he lost the Johnny Walker fight is an indictment on his career. I mean, it really, truly is. Like, he had him finished multiple times, and he couldn't finish him. It's just like, it's Johnny Walker. He gets finished by everybody like that. Come on, man. You got to close the show there. And I just feel like, Ryan Spann, he's looked good in some instances. He's got a submission game. He's got good attributes, good frame. But I feel like when the pressure is on Ryan Spann, he falls apart under most circumstances. And I just feel like this is another big pressure spot. I feel like this is Dom Reyes. You talked about a get right spot before. I feel like this is a get right spot. And I really think that he's going to get the win here. I think he might go back to that submission game. I think he might go back to that grappling acumen that he's had. And, Spann is a good offensive grappler because he's got those attributes and he's willing to attack something. He's a poor defensive grappler at times, and that's been brought to bear on a number of occasions. So I would be interested to see what, if any, adjustments we see after moving camps to the Glover Teixeira camp, let's not forget for Dominick Reyes, who's training with the Wellington Turmans and the Alex Poetons and the Glover Teixeiras of the world to improve that grappling game. Be really something if you tried that submission game.
Liam, my brother, we are communicating brain wavelength here, because I was going to talk next about the potential wrestling upside of this man and the fact that that's something that he used to use. I was listening to my guy, shout out James Lynch, best interviewer in the business, was talking to Dom Reyes about this fight coming up, and he talked about getting back to his roots and what got him to the dance. And you know what got him here was mixing in those damn takedowns. I do think there's going to be some potential for some wrestling upside. The longer he drags this fight, the more we have seen that Ryan Spann is breakable. As long as he stays safe early enough in that first round, I think that he's going to have extended success in this fight. He may end up somehow grinding his way to a decision, but I think Ryan Spann breaks far before we get there. I think it's Dom Reyes. I think it's Dom Reyes inside the distance. And you might think KO is the most likely thing on the board, Liam, but I want to see what number they give us for the sub prop. I want to see what kind of a number we end up getting for that sub prop, because I wouldn't be shocked whatsoever if he uses that physicality and just kind of grinds this man out, forces him to turn, give up his neck, and puts that Glover Teixeira grappling to use here. And shout out Mike here. Yeah, I mean, either way, you gotta like the under. It might go over the 1.5 though, simply if Dominick Reyes decides to grapple. It does scream, round one type of spot with Ryan Spann, but Reyes could drag it a little bit later. I would lean with the under though if I'm going to pick something on the total. Did you have something to say there, Liam?
I just think that both guys are pretty live throughout. I do think that, maybe that win equity trails off a little bit for Spann over the course of the fight. But I do think that even in the early going, Reyes is very live here. I mean, like Ryan Spann has had a lot of 1-round fights. Just win, loss, indifferent. The guy goes out there and normally everything is said and done. The dust settles in round one.
And you know what? There's that. I know it's a bit of a narrative, but Jiri fully admitted that Reyes knocked him out. Jiri came out in an interview after that fight, and I went back and you can find the spot. He gets clocked by Dom Reyes, and he said that he woke up on the ground. Like he shot a takedown. What is the word that I'm looking for? An instinct. He shot an instinct takedown and woke up on the mat with Dominick Reyes. So this man has power in his hands as well. Knockout, very likely. Like I said, we're going money line. We're going inside the distance. Dominick Reyes is probably my favorite spot on the card this week. Not much of a chalk layer, but I'm doing it here in this spot. AY asking, hey, Clint, did you give Trizano the Polyana Viana Colby Covington finger treatment? AY, no, I did, but, he never asked, so. All right. I almost put out a poll that I was like, what was the biggest storyline coming out of UFC Vegas 64? The potential sports gambling scandal or Polyana Viana's finger? Like, I'm not sure which one caught more attention on the internet last week. All right, everybody. Next up, we've got Renato Moicano taking on Brad Riddell. We are back on the City Kickboxing train. Brad Riddell has been my guy, Liam. Like, I love this guy. And he's fallen on tough times. 0-2, rough little run here. Both of them by finish. The Fiziev fight, I bet him. I thought he was going to be able to stand and bang with Rafael Fiziev. I was on him in that spot. I've been on him in most of his fights. He's been a bit of a money train for me. You just go back to the well, rinse and repeat with this guy. And then I had to kill one of my babies. I bet Jalen Turner heavy against him in that last fight, Liam. And I called the sub. We got the guillotine in that first round. Like I bet that spot. It was a good spot, good opportunity for me. I love Jalen Turner. Just speaks to the confidence I've got in that guy. I wonder about Brad Riddell, and I wondered where he was at coming back into that fight. There were so many things going against him in that spot. But now it feels like a potential buy low spot here on my guy, Brad Riddell, because in my opinion, for my money, Liam, Jalen Turner is a far, far better prospect than Renato Moicano is. And getting a plus price tag here on my guy seems like not a half bad deal. Now, Renato Moicano, got to give him his dues. He's 16-5-1. He's got a good frame. He reminds me a bit of Charles Oliveira, right? He's got that submission upside, BJJ black belt, slick grappling. He's got that finishing offense. And also, he's kind of got the durability concerns. The same thing that we had with Charles Oliveira, where he can get dropped, he can get rocked, and then he'll choke you out and, you know, finish you on the mat after he survives in some of those spots. But he's not Charles Oliveira, and I think that's kind of what it comes down to. Renato Moicano has floundered every time he's taken that slight bump up in competition. And I know it was on short notice, but like even his last fight, he got absolutely dog walked by Rafael dos Anjos. Like it wasn't even close. He's got wins over Damir Hadzovic, you know, Jai Herbert, Alex Hernandez, these mid-tier fringe guys. He does have a win over Cub Swanson and Calvin Kattar. You got to give him props, you know, in those kinds of spots, but he just hasn't come along quite the way that you would want him to, in my opinion. And now he's taken on a guy in Brad Riddell who can mix in the full MMA game. He's got good, solid striking, trains out at Tiger Muay Thai. He's got good offensive wrestling. He always mixes that in, dumps his opponents, grinds on them, wears them out. His submission defense, unless your name is Jalen Turner and you've got, you know, these gigantic 6-foot arms that he can wrap around your neck. Usually that sub D holds up pretty well for my guy, Brad Riddell. It's only been 4 months since he got that club and sub, so I'm a little sketchy of his durability, but I think it's a dog or pass spot for me here on Brad Riddell. Liam, how about you?
Yeah, man, I would tend to agree, right? And the reason being is because Moicano, people are talking about in the chat that you know, Moicano can finish anywhere. And that's true. You know, I think his best way to finish this fight, to win this fight, is to submit Brad Riddell. You know, he did get audited a little bit in terms of his submission defense in his last fight. In a lot of his UFC fights, he's shown if you're just a wrestler, if you're going to bring that wrestling heavy game plan, you're going to, you know, struggle against Brad Riddell. He's going to really offer a lot of resistance. He's going to make you work. He's very strong. He's stocky. He's compact. I talked about why being a smaller person can really help you from a defensive wrestling standpoint in some of the earlier breakdowns. And that's the truth about him. But it also can leave you vulnerable to standing back takes. And it can leave you in a position where if somebody does get into a dominant position, you'll have a hard time getting out because they have length. They can create leverage. They can create points of balance and posts on the ground far away from you that you can't reach. So I think that Brad Riddell, if he ends up on bottom in this fight, he could end up looking like a plus 500 underdog, right? That's the truth. But while this fight's on the feet, where Renato Moicano likes to get down, he is susceptible to being knocked out. It's clear at this point in his career. He takes a lot of big, heavy shots. I mean, he was nearly finished a million times by RDA, who's on the back nine of his career, generously, right? I think that in that spot, the dog's trying to get in here. So maybe Brad Riddell really is live. The dog's literally trying to break down the door to my office. So I think that, you know,
it's a good sign, Liam.
Yeah, exactly. Your boy's on the right track. I'll tell you, I was with you, right? I had a massive investment on fight not to go the distance, Jalen Turner against Brad Riddell. And I actually had the fight ends by a sub plus 600 as well in that spot. And it's because I felt like Jalen Turner, you know, he's a front headlock guy. Brad Riddell, when he gets hurt, he wrestles you. You know, he's going to try and attempt takedowns. That is, again, a problem for me. You know, the one thing that's keeping me off the Brad Riddell money line here is my concern that, you know, if he gets tagged, he goes for a shot and he gets guillotined in this spot by somebody who's got long arms, big and tall, like Renato Moicano. But last but not least, I have had a great read on Brad Riddell fights historically. I bet him as an underdog against Shrudober. I bet him as a dog against Fiziev, which was a bad bet by me, truthfully. Just a plus 110. It was a complete donation by me. I've now bet on Fiziev in all the fights after that to get my money back. But I had to see a prove it spot from Fiziev. He proved it and then some. But then I faded the shit out of Brad again in his last fight. I think this is a get right spot for Brad. I do. I think that it's a good fight. I think it's competitive and honest. But Moicano is here for money. That's what he said last time. I don't care. I'm here for money. I'm here to fight. I'm here to get more fights under my belt. I feel like that kind of mindset, that kind of attitude can get you a fight of the night with Brad Riddell that you lose 29-28, or it could get you knocked out cold. So I like Brad Riddell to get this done. But if it turns into a grappling match, you know, don't be surprised. I prefer unders here. Both these guys are pretty violent. I could see it being a Riddell, you know, greasy decision, but I feel like he's due for a UFC knockout, and this is the kind of guy to get it against. So, yeah, give me Brad Riddell by knockout.
Okay. I'm glad we agree there again, Liam. And frankly, I'm glad you mentioned the violence because I was going to ask how you felt about the total. And I could see this being an under spot as well, simply because we've seen Moicano break on the feet before, and his offense is off the charts. So if this does hit the ground with him in any type of control position, he could finish the fight himself. I'm with you there. I do lean under. I do lean with the dog. This may be one of those spots, Liam, where I do 1-1. If you bet the underdog at plus 105 and then you bet the 2.5 at plus 110 and one of them hits, you're making money. You have them hit. If you're on the right side both times, you're having a good night. But as long as you hit one of them, you end up profiting on the fight. That may be the move here for me on this particular spot.
Yeah, man, don't hate that at all. And I just think that both these guys are going to be looking to pursue a finish. It's the lightweight division where guys really like to get after it. So I think a finish could be incoming on either side. I think that's probably the smarter way to distance yourself from figuring out who's going to win in a volatile situation.
I like it. And Dirty Reagan here saying Riddell will control him to a decision. Hopefully, like I said, as long as it's plus money on both sides, baby, I'll take a decision from Riddell. Take a little tiny problem, get my butt out the door. All right, everybody. Maybe the most hyped up fight on the card at this point, Liam. I am seeing opinions. I am seeing opinions on this fight around the internet. I cannot wait to break this one down with you. Dan Hooker taking on Claudio Puelles. Oh boy. Now, okay, let me just go ahead and start by saying where I'm at on this one. We talked, both of us had a pretty solid read for most of Brad Riddell's fights going back. There's those fighters, Liam. There's your boys, the guys who you just know how they operate, and whether it's betting for or against, you seem to do pretty well on those kinds of fighters. And then there's those other fighters you can't fucking figure out. And I'm worried that Dan Hooker is becoming one of those boys for me, because I felt like I used to have a damn good read on Dan Hooker, but he really has not lived up to what I expected him to be. I thought he was going to be title contender worthy. I really thought that he was going to do better in the Michael Chandler fight. I thought he was going to do better in the Arnold Allen fight. I think I bet him out of principle because I felt the line was stupid in Islam Makhachev. I might have bet the under in that spot instead. I'm failing my memory here. But the thing for me with this man is he's settled nicely into a gatekeeper kind of role. He's lost to Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, Islam Makhachev, Arnold Allen, guys that either have held the belt, challenged for the belt, or frankly are about to challenge for the belt. So he's really only he's losing to the best of the best, right? He got that step down in competition against Nasrat Haqparast. Boy, did he show out. Like, that was the buy low spot. When Dan Hooker fought Nasrat Haqparast, that was the spot to just be like, okay, he showed us exactly who he is and where he's at. If you're not elite upper echelon, he is absolutely going to school you on the feet. But now he's getting Claudio Puelles, a guy that I'm 1-1 with. He's 12-2, and he's the knee bar king. This guy comes out of Killcliff FC. He fought on Tough Latin America, and I'm 1-1 with this guy. I went to war with him and got the win over Grutzmacher, and then pivoted and went, you know what? Clay Guida's not falling for that bullshit. Clay Guida fell for that bullshit, Liam. He knee barred that man so fast it made my head spin. So I'm now sitting here going, fucking hell, like, was I right the first time? Like, is Claudio Puelles for real? Is he just the guy? Dan Hooker coming back up to 155, scoping him out on the internet. He looks much healthier, Liam. His biceps are the size of my head. He is huge at 155. I think he belongs at 155. The 145 experiment just doesn't seem to go well for him. It's not quite as bad as Nate Manes, but it seems like it's impacted his durability, his performance, trying to cut low for an advantage. I think he's better off up here. But that doesn't save his knees and ankles from a man like Claudio Puelles. Puelles has a nice kicking game. He stays on the outside. He'll wreck your legs with those kicks from the outside. I worry a little bit about his wrestling. I know he's getting better, but he shoots like naked takedowns from way outside sometimes, and that is a little bit concerning to me without setting those up. But once he gets on the ground, like, he's got such pure confidence in his grappling. He'll accept that bottom position. He'll play off of his back from there, and he can lose minutes because of that. So far, it's paid off. He's been able to go ahead and get the win in all these spots, even after rolling to the bottom, and that worries me. If he does that against the wrong guy, I thought that Clay Guida was going to be the guy that would just be able to ride him out on top. I think Dan Hooker's got an obvious apparent advantage here on the feet, but Claudio Puelles is the guy who is he is here, and he knows exactly who he is, and he's been in this division the whole time. He's not hopping around. He's 26-year-old. He's improving. I think maybe it's Claudio time, Liam. Like, it's one of those spots to me where I feel like it may just be Puelles, like, believe it. You know what I mean? Like, well, I don't have a reason not to believe in Claudio Puelles at this point. Like, in 2016, he got knocked out by Martin Bravo. So, okay, like, we know that Dan Hooker is a vicious striker on the feet, but I really don't know that I want to lay a price with him after everything we've seen from him, especially considering he's going up against a primary grappler rather than a striker who he does his best work against. Violence, Liam, violence. I don't think I want to pick a side here in this one. Let's just hope somebody gets crushed, whether it's a knee getting snapped in half or an elbow landing to the side of the head. I think I'm going to pick Claudio Puelles, but I don't think I want to pick a side. I think I'll just lean with somebody going under here. How about you?
Yeah, just wanted to say off the top, because I don't know how many NFL fans that we have in the building, but I am not an NFL sharp. I'm letting you know now, but it is Monday Night Football, and I am playing the New Orleans Saints here. I took the +2 a little bit earlier in the day, and I took Kamara anytime touchdown and 2 touchdowns. He's never gotten 2 touchdowns in this game in terms of November 7th games in the past, but he's gotten 1 touchdown in each of the last 2 years on this date, and I think he's going to do it again tonight. So, yeah, I like Kamara to get it across the goal line. But as regards this fight,
real quick.
Yeah, no, please go for it.
Hey, I've been shouting to you guys from the rooftops. Y'all know I'm not the best gambler in the world, right? But the whole point of this podcast is I can degen the fuck out and bring you smart people that do know how to gamble. My boy Razor Sharp picks his gambler's first glance of the day. Top pick today is also the Saints +1.5. So, folks, I'm already in on the Saints, and hearing that Liam likes the Saints also, let's roll. That's it. That's the move. So we're rocking the black and gold here tonight on the Die Hard MMA podcast. Thank you for saying that, Liam. And now go right ahead with your breakdown here.
Absolutely. And I'll be pretty brief on this one, man. And I'll just say, I got respect for Dan Hooker. I think he's a great fighter. But I think that, he kind of poured out the jug in that Dustin Poirier fight a little bit. And I don't think he's looked the same since. Yes. His big win in that time, basically his only win in that time, is over Nasrat Haqparast. And by the way, I was the first to lay the -150 against Nasrat Haqparast in that spot. I did the same thing with my boy Bobby Green. Just thought that there was a little bit of fraudulence on that side of things. He did much better in his fight against McDessie last time, obviously. But I think that as far as I'm concerned, man, seeing some signs of regression in the game of Dan Hooker and seeing some signs of desperation, right? When you see guys start moving weight classes and emaciating themselves, frankly, like he did for his last fight, it's a problem. It's something that scares me because it's saying, maybe I can't get better in terms of skills, so I need to get smaller so I can beat guys again, and now he's trying, to get back after it, to improve his skills. I'm hoping that he's able to get that done and show a better product here. If he's able to keep the fight on the feet, he's going to look like the hindsight favorite. He's a better, cleaner striker. But I think Puelles, he's got weird strikes. He's going to bring in shots from different angles. And Hooker bailed himself out at sometimes in the Haqparast fight with his wrestling, with his takedowns, with his dominant top pressure. And I actually said in my breakdowns, I thought that was the wise thing to do. I was like, Nasrat's not going to stop the takedown. Let's take him down. You're huge at 55. And then he tries to cut back down to 145. Now he's back at 55. Good for him. That's the right division to be in. But he struggled at times dealing with the grappling threats at 155. Frankly, his reaction to the Kimura is horrifying when he's getting, Kimura'd by Islam Makhachev. I'm not sure he even tapped, but they stopped the fight because he was about to get his shoulder broken, and I'm not even sure he was aware. His arm is completely outstretched behind his back, and he's like sitting there waiting, like, dude, the only thing that could happen next is that you're just out for 2 years, and your shoulder breaks in half. So for me, didn't have a promising sign there. Obviously, Islam's the champion. He's lost to very high level guys most of the time that he's lost, but the Allen fight and the way it went down, not a great look, man. He couldn't take much damage there at all, and he was getting busted up with the shots. I'd like to see him perform better here at 155. Can't bank on it till I see it. So for me, it is a Puelles spot here. And I do think Puelles will get exposed. I think that's coming someday, but it just might not be on Saturday. Dan Hooker, it just might not be his time anymore. I think he's got other things going on outside of fighting as well. The guy basically made a ton of sacrifices to make a lot of money, to try and like put some food on the family or on the table for his family, excuse me. But it's gotten to the point where, you know, he's now got his back against the wall for his career, really, at the UFC level, because it's coming up on a lot of fights, not a lot of wins. And, you know, he probably gets paid a decent amount to show up for these fights. You know, he's been around a long time. He's had UFC main events. So I think those are the kind of things that eventually that bill is going to come due. And if he's not able to get over somebody like Claudio Puelles, you know, that might be sooner than we envision.
Yeah. I like it, Liam. I'm with you. I think it's Claudio. I think it's under. And again, maybe the same thing as the Brad Riddell fight. You do one of each, right? Like if Hooker finishes, more power to you. If I can get, you know, even money or a plus number on the under, both bases are covered. But I think I'm going to be with you and going against him here in this spot. And I thought, Liam, every once in a while, you know me, I'm the funny guy. I'm a content creator. I'm here for a good time. I thought about going back to the well. When the CKB boys first came on site, I came up with the CKB parlay, and I did it every event. They were crushing. These guys were all plus money or pick'ems. Like, you had minus 125 on Israel Adesanya's. Like, we would tie 3 and 4 of these legs together, and we'd get these stupid plus numbers on the CKB parlay. And I was like, you know what? Like, they've lost a little bit of that spit shine. Maybe we go back to the CKB parlay this weekend. And then I watched the tape on the Dan Hooker and Claudio Puelles fight, and I went, that one might be the buster right there. Like, that's maybe the leg I don't want to have on the CKB parlay, because it's like 8-1. If you think all 4 of the boys get it done this weekend, it's like 8-1. And we went back and forth at the beginning of the fight, man. I don't mind if you want to take the Ulberg fight at all. And then I think that our guy Brad Riddell is the side. We'll get to the Izzy fight down the line. You can always hedge off if you've got the favorite as an anchor, but you can't get past that third leg there with Dan Hooker. That's one you got to win before you can hedge out. So yeah, man, I don't think I'm pulling that move this week. I'm with you. I think Claudio, I think under. And if you guys have, I know the show is brought to you by Superbook Sports, but BetMGM does like the specific submission props. They're wise to it. They know what's up. But that specific knee bar sub prop, you'll get a little juicier number there than you will on the straight sub if you feel like degenning out just a little bit. Just so you know, it's an option available to you. This is
now just watch Puelles' first Kimura in UFC.
Dude, you know what? That Kimura you mentioned, I really feel like he went into the Islam fight not giving a fuck. Like, I think that was a straight up get the bag, get home. Like, he didn't bother trying in that spot. So I hear what you're saying. The regression.
You're saying him and Bobby Green went to the same playbook? Exactly. They were like, let's just get this over as soon as possible so he can move on to his title shot and I can move on with my career.
Exactly. It was like, nah, I'm not even going to worry about it. Just pay me. We'll get out of here. All right, everybody. Hey, we had someone commenting before. We got like 150 live viewers here on the show, but we're desperately painting for some likes here, folks. It takes 2 seconds. Scroll on down, hit the like button, hang out with us, have some fun, make some money. Let's go Saints. Next up, we got the retirement fight of none other than the legend himself, Frankie Edgar, taking on Chris Gutierrez. This fight makes me sad, Liam. This fight makes me very sad. There was a time there where Frankie Edgar was my favorite fighter. I loved watching that guy. The Gray Maynard trilogy, some of the most epic fights you'll ever see. The way this man would come back after getting damn near deaded, it was legendary. Frankie Edgar has made such a name for himself, and watching him go the way of BJ Penn here has just been brutal to watch. Trying to hang out at the top of the division and getting knocked out every other fight. Got me a undeserving split decision over Pedro Munoz. Thank you for that, Frankie. But we've been strictly on the fade train since. I did actually try to bet him against Marlon Vera, and it looked like the decision prop that I threw out there was live going into that third round. Maybe, another greasy, hairy split, and then he ate the front kick from hell, which that durability just doesn't last forever, guys. Like, at a certain point, you get in those wars, you drag up and down, back and forth, and you just can't take it anymore. This is a massive step down in competition, obviously, taking on Gutierrez, but Gutierrez is a pretty hot prospect himself. I mean, it's not like it's a layup. It's not a cupcake fight that he's taken here for his retirement fight. 18-3, And 2, Gutierrez coming off of that insane spinning back fist KO of Dana Bakary, where, I mean, I didn't see that coming. Fucking hell, I didn't see that coming. We know he's got power. He is a leg kick savant, but that's really the only way he finishes people, Liam. Like he leg kicks people to death, and then eventually he kind of slows down and he lets them survive. And unless you tap out like my poor guy Vince Morales did, he ends up going all 15. So I feel like this is maybe a fight that Frankie Edgar might be able to survive to the final bell on, use that wrestling, use that footwork. And I can't expect him to win, though. I got to pull Old Faithful back out, Liam. There's no such thing as a happy ending in mixed martial arts. Like, these legends just do not go out on top. I mean, George St. Pierre is one of the only ones to ever actually pull that off. I don't know that I believe in Frankie Edgar actually getting this fight done. The tools are there, but you can't trust the chin at this point. Minus 200 on Chris Gutierrez, plus 175 on Frankie Edgar. On a fight card full of violence, I kind of feel like maybe this is the over spot of the night that I would be interested in. Have Frankie grind his way, survive to a decision, whether he wins or loses, get him to that final bell for his career. I don't know, Liam. What are your thoughts here, man?
Man, Chael Sonnen has an old saying, which is, most of the time people leave this industry face up and embarrassed, right? And it's just a reality. If you stick around long enough that they start booking you in these kind of fights, they're not giving you a polite send-off with a nice thank you. A lot of times they're giving you a kick on the ass out the door and you stuck around too long. So how many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man? I don't like to quote the meme every time, but it's true. It does come down to a certain point where Frankie Edgar, historically one of the most durable fighters on the UFC roster, one of the guys who could battle back from anything, who could take any shot and keep coming forward, who could take a 10-8, a 10-7 round even, and still come on to win the fight. And now he's taken one big shot in the fight, and the fight's over. He looked great against Chito Vera. Everybody's thinking, I got the bet of the century. He takes one front kick to the face. Everything changed.
Was literally me.
How about the spot against Corey Sandhagen where the fight was over before it got started? Corey just went out there, flying knee. Thanks for playing. We'll see you next time.
It's in the intro, Liam. I see that clip every single Monday.
it's a young man's game. At the end of the day, that's the truth of it. And Chris Gutierrez in his last fight surprised me. Dana Bakary, a lot scarier than the modern version of Frankie Edgar. I hate to say, on the ground, Frankie's a beast. He's really credentialed. That's where Frankie could win the fight. He's got to get him down. He's got to take the back. He's got to put a choke on him. But if that doesn't happen, I really struggle to see Frankie Edgar winning this fight at a very high clip. I think on the feet, he got a very, very nice decision against Pedro Munoz. That fight could have went either way. I thought that Frankie was probably the side there, but that was against a good leg kicker. He was able to neutralize it a little bit, but he also took a lot of big, hard leg kicks in that fight and just was able to use his footwork and his boxing, the fact that he was throwing more hands to distract the judges from the fact that he was getting eaten up to the legs a little bit. Gutierrez, he's put a couple guys down with those low kicks now over the course of his career. He's now showing he can put people away with the shots upstairs. Dana Bakary, if anything, I would have credited his durability, maybe not his defense, but just the guy could take a shot and keep coming forward, keep throwing, knock people out. He's got big power. Man, he got put out bad there. And I had a bet on Dana.
I thought he was going to get the knockout.
Yeah, it was a reverse Uno card. And I think in this spot, man, I really could see Chris Gutierrez getting the finish, and I like Frankie. Obviously, we'd all prefer if that didn't happen, but there's just certain realities of the game, and it's a young man's game. I don't think Frankie Edgar would mind doing, one last service to the industry, which is setting up Chris Gutierrez for a big fight his next time out, because he's still going to be here, and Frankie's not going to be a character on this TV show anymore. And at the end of the day, you got to remember, that's what they're doing here. They're going to come back next week. So when Frankie's gone and retired, they're going to say, oh, well, thank you for the memories. They might do a nice send-off package, but Frankie's not going to be on the show next week. So they want this guy, Chris Gutierrez, who's going to be back in a future event, to look good. Makes sense?
Makes sense. And Liam, I don't think I've ever heard anybody put it that way. That's maybe my new favorite phrase. You're not going to be a character on this TV show anymore. That's fantastic. No, better. You couldn't have put it better, man. And frankly, you might be right. The way he showed off his finishing ability, even if it was a wild ass spinning back fist, like the fact that he's showing off the ability to do something like that shows the young man is improving. He's got that finishing killer instinct at this point in his career against a guy that has just meme died several times in his last couple fights. I wouldn't hate it. It's definitely favored or pass here for me. I don't know. I know we're here to make money, Liam. I don't know if I can stomach watching Frankie die again. I don't want to bet an under because I don't want to celebrate the fact that Frankie got KO'd again. But it is what it is. We're in the hurt business here. Yeah, real quick, Gerardo Hernandez, shout out my friend becoming a member. Thank you so much, everybody. Just so you know, we have opened up the members board here with Pub Sports Radio. You can join up for a $4.99 donation a month to be a member at Pub Sports Radio. We're going to be doing some cool stuff for our members specifically, and it helps us, keep all this free, awesome content coming to you guys. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. All right. Here's the good stuff, everybody. The last couple fights on the card. Make sure you get your asses out there. Subscribe to my boy Liam Picks Fights YouTube channel. He broke 2K. Congratulations on the benchmark. Give the man a follow on Twitter, one of the sharpest minds in the game. You're going to want to listen to what he has to say week in and week out, whether or not he's here on the Die Hard MMA podcast. Next up, Dustin Poirier taking on Michael Chandler. And I kind of hate both these guys right now, Liam. So in the last fight, Dustin Poirier, the Conor McGregor fight, I was like, I'm going to get sneaky. No fights, no two fights are alike, right? I'm going to take the over 1.5, Liam. I'm going to be sneaky here. I'm going to take the over 1.5. And it looked like it was going great. It was so perfect. The fight hit the ground. I'm like, Conor's going to defend. We're going to get to round 2. I just need 2 minutes and 30 seconds more. And then snap. It's like, son of a bitch. Like, that's the kind of run that I'm on right now. And then the Charles Oliveira fight, I think I did the same exact fucking thing, except that Charles destroyed my guy, and I had the 2.5 in that one. So, we get to the third round. I'm thinking we're good. Minute and 2 seconds in, just under that bar of 2.5, my guy. I keep betting overs with Dustin Poirier because of the wars he's been through, because of the Dan Hooker fight, because of the Max Holloway fight. Like, I keep believing that this man can get me over 1.5 and 2.5, and he's just been biting me in the ass on repeat the last couple times I've tried. Now, Michael Chandler, I just don't buy Michael Chandler. I mean, I know he is doing his best ducking USADA, and that doesn't leave a whole lot of time out there for anything else in his day-to-day. But I faded him with Justin Gaethje. I faded him with Tony Ferguson. So 1 for 1, right? 1 for 1 there on that one. Can't be too upset. But I also tried to fade him with Dan Hooker. So I'm negative going against this guy, Michael Chandler. He's just so damn explosive, man. Like, he knows how to hang in a fight. If he doesn't kill you in that first round, he's been to decision more than I think people realize. I know it's not been a lot, but he's got 5 decision wins and he's got 3 decision losses over the course of his career. So yeah, he finishes more than he decisions, but he can survive a 15-minute fight. And I kind of feel like this is another King of Violence belt, right? Like when Dustin Poirier took on Gaethje and they went to war in that fight, and it went way deeper than anybody expected, even with both guys hurt. When he fought Eddie Alvarez, it ended a little bit earlier, but I kind of feel like this could be that kind of a fight. Chandler he's got those nukes that kind of come out of nowhere. I think Dustin Poirier has got, never mind. I was going to say he's got less miles on him, but I don't know that that's true. The thing he gives up more often than not is the submission. Like, I know he got knocked out by Michael Johnson a while ago, but before that, it was Conor McGregor. Nobody really knocks Dustin Poirier out. If anybody was going to do it, it would be somebody who hits as hard and is as juiced as Michael Chandler is. But I think he can out-finesse him. I think Dustin Poirier can move. He can use the footwork. His boxing is cleaner. I think he can survive, drag this fight a little bit deeper, and then be the one that pulls away with the win. So I think I'm on the Dustin Poirier side, but frankly, I have not had a good read on either of these fighters recently. So I don't have the confidence that I would like to have in that pick here in this spot. Dustin Poirier is a -210 favorite. Michael Chandler is a +180 underdog. Talk to me, Liam. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, ironically, Clint, my only really strong reads on some of these recent Dustin Poirier fights have been towards the under, right? I got the last two Conor McGregor fights wrong because I'm biased as shit. I'm Irish as all get out, Conor McGregor fan. Also, just feel like, there's real analytical reasons why he could have went with Conor McGregor in those matchups. But frankly, the time away, the drug use, all these kind of things, it just wasn't to be, right? Now, in this case, Dustin Poirier, a lot of miles on him. I talked about Dan Hooker having some miles. Dustin Poirier is the one who came out the other end of that fight with the win, but he also came out with a lot of damage, man. He's been in a lot of fights where he took a lot of shots, a lot of big shots, but Michael Chandler's done the same thing. And, when you look at both these guys, you're not going to say that either one of them was the best fighter of their generation, right? But what you will say is that they're very good action fighters. And I feel like in some ways they're like the two defining action fighters of their company. Like Bellator MMA is a thing that has existed for this long, despite some bad events at times, despite some, lackluster fights at times, because of guys like Michael Chandler, who put the organization on the map, who had these incredible fights, and he came in with a lot of fanfare as a result. The UFC put him in a lot of prime positions, a lot of great opportunities. But notice that he hasn't gotten the better of a lot of those opportunities, and they don't want him to because he's the Bellator guy. And Dustin Poirier, for better or for worse, in my opinion, is the UFC's guy. They like him. They've liked him for a long time. They put him in a lot of premium positions. And now when he's on hard times, they're going to give him a position where he can get back on track, where he can get a big win and set himself up. I wouldn't be surprised if Dustin Poirier's got 2, 3, 4 fights left. He's probably winding down his career quickly. And the path for Chandler is that he starts fast and he'll come after you and he can blast you, and guys that haven't been taken out of there early, like Dan Hooker, got taken out of there early and hasn't looked the same since as well. So there are examples in the record where Michael Chandler can come and chin you early. I had him round 1 against Charles Oliveira plus 750 to win by knockout. And I had him as an underdog in that fight because I thought the power, the fact that he could explode out of back takes, I liked a lot of the elements that he brought there. And eventually it wasn't meant to be. His cardio isn't built to last. He is a short-term tank kind of guy. But he's also a very skilled fighter. For those first 5 minutes, he brings a lot of intensity. I just think that the better, sharper counter fighter is Dustin Poirier. I think he's going to see the shots coming. I think he's going to land the cleaner shots in the boxing. And I don't think he's going to do the Justin Gaethje and let him dance around with him and stay in the fight. I think he's going to probably finish him brutally. But either way, I think it's going to be a war while it lasts. I think they're going to throw down. I just can't trust the durability of Dustin Poirier at this stage against a big hitter like this at this huge chalk price. Right now, that's my inclination. So if anything, I would mostly lean towards the under 2.5 rounds here, the fight not to go the distance. I think they're going to swing to a finish.
Liam, you're probably right. You're probably right, man. I'm kind of automatically biased in thinking that I've got some value on the overs in these spots, kind of the way you've been looking at Conor McGregor there. I feel like there have been some reasons, but the older these guys get, the more damage they absorb and take. That's probably not a winning formula for me to keep loading up on the overs when they just keep on going under. So perhaps you're right, my friend. Knockout props all around. If you like your guy, take your pick. Maybe juice that lineup for you a little extra bit there. I'm going to side with Poirier. I'm going to side with Dustin. But again, I'm not laying that minus 200 price tag. So that'll be the pick. That'll be the official move. But we'll see what happens as far as any betting concern. Might just watch this one. Might be a good fireball and popcorn fight. Might be a good one to just sit back and enjoy a little snack and watch some guys bang until somebody loses brain cells. All right, everybody. Next fight up, co-main event time. Carla Esparza taking on Zhang Weili. I believe that's how you're supposed to pronounce it. And Liam, I have thoughts on this fight. I do. I have thoughts on this fight. But I think you have thoughts on this fight. And we got a little prelude to that talking earlier, if you guys followed the Pub Sports live betcast this past week. So, Liam, if you don't mind, I'm going to let you lead, my friend. I'll let you take this one off and talk to me about this matchup. Let the people know how you feel.
Yeah, so again, this is one that I haven't quite bet yet because it actually seems like the market's been moving the other way a little bit. And listen, do I understand why? Of course I understand why. It's like Carla Esparza has been one of the most profitable underdogs in the history of the UFC, period. Any weight class, any way you want to slice it, any way you want to do it. Constantly doubted, constantly disrespected. Nobody ever believed she was going to win a fight. But sometimes what you see is people are late to the party. People start to see, a trend, let's say, in betting. And so they think, oh, this is the time I should hop on the trend. Whereas the trend might be coming to an end. And everybody who's been riding it is like, wow, this was a great thing while it lasted. But, maybe we should take our ball and go home. And in this case, I max bet Carlos Esparza against Rose Namajunas. I thought that it was an obvious play there just because of the difference in, number one, Carla won the first fight. She won it in completely dominant fashion. In the subsequent bouts in between, we hadn't seen Carla Esparza get like summarily outstruck by somebody, and that's why she lost the fight. She got completely outgrappled by somebody who's bigger, stronger, Tatiana Suarez. So I felt like, there was reason to be hopeful that at plus 185, Carla Esparza at worst was going to make it a close decision, right? And that's in the end what we ended up getting. It was one of the worst fights in UFC history. Not very much of substance happened in the entire contest. Even on rewatch, a couple loose takedown exchanges. I'm not sure anybody got hit with a strike. So it was a weird fight. No other way to slice it. But Carla gets the win there. She was the one advancing, coming forward. Rose Namajunas, her corner was bafflingly telling her she's doing well as she's just evading the fight the whole time. So this is a different situation. Do I expect Zhang Weili to be on her bicycle running away from Carla Esparza? God, no. I don't expect that at all. I think that it's going to be Zhang Weili chasing after her like she was let out of a cage, and she is now trying to, chase down an animal. It's like Zhang Weili is an aggressive fighter, and she is a very strong woman, and she's got great top pressure, and she's showing off an improving submission game in her recent fights, an improving grappling game, improving cardio. She's shown the dedication to travel all around the world, continue to improve her game. And odds makers are saying she should win this fight really easily. And she's, coming into this as the challenger, right? And we haven't seen it a lot, but when we do see people that are favored as the challengers, they win a decent portion of the time. They don't win every time. But what we see is that, I think there's times to say, hey, the champion should not be disrespected here. This challenger hasn't proved enough. But Zhang Weili is a champion. She's won the belt before. It's like she's got a pretty decent record in title fights. The problem was a matchup. Rose Namajunas is a tough matchup for her. She's got some physical dynamics that are way different than Carla, right? Her and Carla are about the same size. So who's going to be stronger? I think Zhang Weili. Who's going to be the better wrestler? Maybe Carla by an inch. Maybe Carla by 2 inches. But I don't think she's going to be this big of a gap in the wrestling. I think the wrestling is going to have closed. She's been training with Henry Cejudo. She's been training with Captain Eric Albarracin. She's been training with some of the best names in the game. And for a while now, the Hickman brothers, Bangtown Muay Thai as well. It's just a lot of things that are adding up to, if somebody's going to be on insane sauce in this fight, who would I think it's going to be? I'm just taking guesses. It's like maybe Zhang Weili would be the one of the two. It's just, so all these things point to Carla Esparza has been there, done that, got to the top of the mountain, seen the top of the mountain twice. What does she really have to do anymore in this sport? Nothing. She's proven everything. She's done it in 2 combat sports. Zhang Weili is hungry. She's about this life right now. She is hungry for that belt back. She wants it. I think she deserves it. I think she's going to get it. So I like Zhang Weili inside the distance.
There you have it, folks. I've got practically nothing to add to that. I feel the same, Liam, and I've been on this very podcast and said how disrespectful I feel it is to make a challenger to a title a favorite. I feel like anytime you can get a champion, a seeded champion as a favorite, or I'm sorry, as an underdog, that's almost always the move. But like you mentioned, there are times, and right now we're getting a challenger who is a former champion herself. And we got paper, rock, scissors going on right here with Carla Esparza and Rose Namajunas. There's good matchups. There's bad matchups. And I know this is me just eating up all of the propaganda machine, but did you see her picking up Francis Ngannou, Liam? Like, did you watch the clip of her doing that shit? Like, Zhang Weili is like this tall, and I'm sitting down, folks. Like, she is not a big woman. And Francis Ngannou is the out of competition heavyweight champion of the world. Probably weighs 320 pounds right now, maybe over exaggerating a little bit. But she picked him the fuck up like he was nothing. Like, the water at Fight Ready is good. It is good stuff over at Fight Ready. There's a reason that's my favorite gym. And like
I think they eat their asparagus and go to bed early. That's always been my theory.
Lots of push-ups. So, guys, I'm with Liam here. Carla Esparza, I know there are some very sharp people in our community who cashed a ticket against Rose Namajunas the last fight out, which I don't know if there's a more variance-ridden fight result than I've ever seen in my life. Congratulations to anybody who cashed that ticket. But that was a staring contest. Zhang Weili's not going to engage in that kind of a fight. Like, Carla's going to have a fight on her hands on Saturday. And I do think that her wrestling chops training at Fight Ready are getting better. She'll be capable of holding her own physically. I think she's the stronger, more powerful of the two. She is 2 inches larger than Carla Esparza, and frankly, Zhang Weili is almost larger than nobody in this weight class, so that's kind of a big deal. I see a lot of advantages for Zhang Weili. I agree with the line. I think she's the side. I'm with you, Liam. And new Zhang Weili. Let's go. Got to shout out real quick here, though, because the man himself rolls into town. Tajik Bey with the $4.99 donos and just a few of them. Thank you so much, Tajik Bey, for sponsoring the podcast this evening here with all these donations, my friend. We do appreciate you here at Pub Sports Radio. If you guys didn't see, Tajik cashed a couple of dandies at this past weekend. He's got some jingle in his pocket. So we appreciate you for blessing us this evening on the podcast. Tajik Bey, my friend, the GOAT of MMA Twitter. All right, everybody, it's main event time. Liam, you got something
I have to give one last word of pause for that last fight, and it's just this. I have never won a bet on Zhang Weili. So I gave that whole impassioned rant, but I've never won a bet. I've gone to the well with her 3 times. I've come up short 3 times. So I do think that this is a winnable fight for her, but I wanted to give that full disclosure to the audience because I'm coming to you with a lot of passion and vigor, but I haven't quite gotten to the pay window with Zhang Weili quite yet.
I hear you. And that's fair. That's fair enough. It is what it is. But you know what? If it makes you feel any better, Liam, Carla Esparza didn't want this fight. She dragged out her championship as long as humanly possible, went on her honeymoon, took some pictures. Like, she's doing what she can to hang on to that title. I think this is that spot where the UFC saw their opportunity and pounced. I'm not going to read too much into the narrative, but this feels like a matchup that they wanted. And I think for a reason, I know it's never good in betting to like crown someone a little too early, but I think this would be the spot if we're going to do that. So Team Zhang Weili, let's go. All right, everybody, main event time. Smash the like button, jump in the comments, leave your best bet down below on the show. Israel Adesanya taking on Alex Pereira, the man who has faced him, defeated him, knocked him out previously. We're talking narratives, Liam. The UFC has set this one up. It's been a year of us knowing full damn well that one of these days Alex Pereira was going to challenge for Israel Adesanya's title. We knew it was coming. And Alex Pereira has fought way better than I ever expected on his way up to this title fight. I am guilty of trying to fade the UFC narrative and bet against him once or twice. I thought the wrestling, if Sean Strickland was smart enough to go for it, would have been a path to victory there. We should have known full damn well that the wild man would never engage as something as irreputable as grappling in that spot. And Bruno Silva gave him a bit of a fight. That was entertaining. That was a good back and forth fight. Showed that he could go, 15 minutes. This is going to be a technical fight. Every single UFC fight that I've seen Israel Adesanya in has been him trying to style his opponents, trying to find the gaps in their game. He reminds me very much of George St. Pierre, where he will find that one little tiny chink in the armor, and then he will just abuse it over and over and over. That's what he does. And sometimes it's boring as shit, but he's still got the belt on at the end of the day. That's Israel Adesanya for you. Now, he knew this was coming. He's known damn well this was being set up by the UFC, so it's not like he hasn't been watching and preparing for Alex Pereira in this matchup. You go back and you watch their last couple fights. That first one, that was very competitive. The one that went to decision, Israel Adesanya had some very good moments in that fight. Now, obviously, he got starched in the second one, and we know what that left hand of Alex Pereira can do. Got to wonder if Izzy has any intention of bringing the grappling game to bear here. Usually he's the one defending it, but he's been working it this whole time, preparing for wrestlers that may challenge him on the mat. It would be interesting to see Israel Adesanya kind of flip the script here and take this fight to the ground where not many people would expect him to go. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this fight, Liam, because this is one where I just want to watch, frankly. I kind of want to bank on the fact that Israel Adesanya is a young star. He seemingly is still improving his championship mindset. He's a guy that's built to stay on top of the mountain. He's never getting a little too far over his skis. He doesn't give his opponents any opportunities to win. I like that in a champion. And I think we could see Izzy reign for a very, very long time. If anybody's going to get the better of him and knock him out, it would be somebody like Alex Pereira. I will tell you guys, the show is sponsored by Superbook. They feed me some of the info, and I try to pass that along where I can. The only sharp action they've taken so far, and it's way early, so we'll get more info by Friday. We're going to do a sharp action report with Superbook on Friday again for this big pay-per-view card. The only sharp action they've taken on this card so far, though, is their number one gambler, and he took Alex Pereira months ago when they opened up the line. So just for your info, that's something that has happened. Liam, talk to me about this matchup. Who do you think is keeping the belt on Saturday?
Oh, this is a tough fight to call. Some of the fights on the card I feel more confident about than others. This is one of the ones that, I'm probably going to be kicking around all week, right? And the line sort of reflects that as well. There's a lot that goes into this matchup. 4X the experience stands out to me in professional mixed martial arts, right? We're talking about two guys that come from a kickboxing background, but the younger man in this fight has 4X the experience of the older gentleman here. But is that the whole story? It's obviously not the whole story, right? We see, Poatan comes out there. Sean Strickland's been around the game for a long time. People will forget that he actually has a very good jiu-jitsu background. But he wasn't able to bring any of that to bear. The fight was over pretty quick. He got hit with some hard shots. And this is the thing that, when I look at the matchup, I see one guy who has found his footing in the UFC, who really has only lost to somebody who was able to stifle his kicking game and take him down and get on top of him, wear him out, take away some of that explosivity, make him a little bit more hesitant to go. And he might be a little hesitant to go in this fight. We have seen Izzy give up these close, decisions where somebody swings at him with big power, maybe lands, connects, clips him a little bit, and he starts to take a little bit of a backseat in the fight where he's still, edging out the rounds with some leg kicks, some, smaller maneuvers, but he really hasn't set these decisive victories apart in all of his fights. But then when he's had somebody who wanted to engage him, who wanted to attack him, who wanted to get after him, he's normally beat the hell out of those guys. I think of the Paulo Costa fight. Obviously that one is a really bad look, but even some of the other fights where guys have been more aggressive. Whitaker, the first time before he had been knocked out, felt a lot more confidence to come forward. People will forget as well. He dropped Whitaker in the second fight, and then Whitaker sort of started to, take a little bit of the backseat there and was content to let it be a close fight and let the chips fall where they may. And I don't see Alex doing that. I see Alex coming forward and trying to force a fight on this guy and swinging him. And that might be to his detriment. That actually might be what gets him hurt and finished here, because Izzy on the counter is very sharp and he hits very hard. And it's not like he got blown out of the water when these two guys kickboxed. It was very competitive. It was back and forth. The death touch is a real thing. And Alex Pereira seems to have it. But then you look at the fact that, MMA, it's such a cruel mistress, right? We all think we know something until Alex Pereira can go out there and go to a 15-minute decision with Bruno Silva, and then Gerald Meerschaert KOs him like he's freaking, prime freaking Muhammad Ali or something. Like it's a tricky sport to figure out. But I think that when I'm looking at it, I'm looking at a guy who's got a lot more experience. He's got more experience at the UFC level. He's a high-level striker, so he's got all those skills. He's an Andre Galvao purple belt, so he's very well-versed on the ground. I don't think he's going to get, surprised by something from Poatan on the ground that Glover Teixeira teaches him. So it really just comes down to the physicality and how wise is Izzy. Because I think if Izzy goes out there and has an ego battle and stays on the feet the whole time, maybe it gets clipped. This is going to be closer to that 50-50 line. But I think if Izzy mixes up the martial arts a little bit, pushes this guy against the fence, gets a hold of him, takes his back, he might create some pressure and some fatigue and really get some doubt in his mind by forcing him into places he's not comfortable. Izzy, on the other hand, has been in some of those transitions for better and for worse, and he's threatened a lot of guys who are theoretically better wrestlers and grapplers on paper with his submission attempts and with his scrambles, but he's also put himself in vulnerable positions. You'll remember Marvin Vettori, if he didn't completely spaz out, had his back as much as taken. So I think that both these guys are imperfect, but the guy who's further along in his development and a little bit younger is Israel Adesanya. He is the one who called for this fight. And I do think Pereira is the trickiest matchup for him in the division because he's got to navigate it on the feet. But right now, I'm going to have to take Israel Adesanya hesitantly, somewhat reluctantly. I tried to bet even Jared Cannonier against this guy. So I've been looking for my chance, but every time I bet against him, he blanks the guy I bet on. So I just got to start putting a little bit more respect on his name. I think he's maybe a generational talent here, but either way, his biggest challenge to date. So haven't parted way with any of my dollars, but leaning towards Israel Adesanya at this point in the week.
There haven't been many guys recently, Liam, that I've been able to just absolutely pinpoint and ride to the bank as long as guys like Israel Adesanya I've had luck with. Most of my guys get derailed pretty early on, and it turns out I'm wrong. I've been pretty lucky on Izzy. I've been with Izzy all the way to the bank on almost all of his fights that have had a bettable price tag on them. The one time I took a shot against him was Marvin Vettori. I thought Vettori might be the guy who could pull off the kind of grappling offensive game and have the strength that he would need to derail Israel Adesanya as champion. But that's the only one. Ever since then, I've been on the easy side. So I'm off that train until I absolutely have to, because I'm with you. I think he's a generational talent. I think that he'll hold his own on the feet. He'll show more to keep himself ahead of the game here and just find a way to win, because that's what he does. You know, I don't know if it's going to be by finish. I don't know if it's going to be by decision, but I think Israel Adesanya at the end of the day will find his path to victory here and get the dang thing done. I don't mind the knockout because, like you mentioned, the counters are going to be there. And if this turns into an emotional rematch, I could absolutely see this getting heated, having the intensity ramped up, and then regardless, one or the other guy will fall. The under makes sense to me if you want to play it that way. And then the knockout on either side makes sense to me if you want to play it that way as well. But I'm going to be in the Izzy camp very, very firmly. Folks, that's UFC 281. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us here on the show. 2 hours and 20 minutes of solid content. Liam, you are an absolute animal and a trooper, my friend. I appreciate your time. Thank you for hanging out with me this long. I know most people would buckle under the pain of watching my face move for 2 straight hours. So thank you very much for sticking it out with me here. If you wouldn't mind, my friend, let the chat know where they can find you, where they can support you, where they can follow you. The floor is yours, my guy.
Truly appreciate it, my man. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure here for a pay-per-view, huge card. Should be a lot of betting opportunities. As you guys should know, if you followed me for a long time, the research doesn't stop for me. I keep going from now until the fight card, and I try and find as many angles as I can, as best information as I can, and put myself in a position to succeed. And so by the end of the week, when my show comes out, I might clean up some of these opinions. I might, get myself a little bit closer to confidence on some sides. So just keep that in mind. This is my preliminary analysis. Got some research done, but there's more to do. So always more information is key. You can find me everywhere at Liam Picks Fights, guys. Delphi Sports is where I put my information first and foremost. They know where I'm going before the general public, but everybody by fight time can hear where I'm going to end up playing my bets. I go on YouTube, I do my show, and I break down all my thoughts on the fights before fight time. So guys, please support me there. Truly means the world how many people have been supporting lately, but not a lot of shows are producing 100-unit returns in any gambling genre, period, point blank. You can look at the numbers, check the scoreboard. Been doing very well this year. So every week it's right back to work for me, and trying to get another pay-per-view off the ground here this week. So UFC 281, the work's never done. Back to battle this week. Let's go. Good guys rise.
All right, good guys rise it is. Guys, I can't sign it off any better than that. You know, I like to leave you with a little sermon for you, a little good feel on the way out the door, but good guys rise is about as good as it gets. Get out there, be kind, surround yourself with good positive influences. That's what we've done here with the Die Hard MMA podcast. And I'd say about 99% of the chat. We're all very positive and like to uplift each other. That's exactly what Liam's about. And that's one of the reasons why he's one of my favorite people on the internet today. Not to mention the freaking 100 units he's up in the year. Support this man, please, for the love of God. And then, like we mentioned, knockout bonus. Check out Superbook Sports. Get your action over there for a legalized, regulated, safe U.S. option. Folks, that's the show. Get out there, kick some ass, take some names. Let's make some money this week. Love you all. Go Saints. We're going to need a comeback. Unfortunately, they're down by 7. All right, kick some ass, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.